Kroger, an annual Boost membership just got even better. Now you can choose from Disney Plus with ads, Hulu with ads, or ESPN Plus on us when you sign up. Plus, enjoy unlimited free delivery, double fuel points, exclusive offers, and free items. Sign up for a Boost membership today. It's an easier way to save, including new streaming options to relax with while we deliver your groceries. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
The following production is part of the We Be Geeks podcast collective.
From days long ago, from uncharted regions of the universe, comes a legend.
The dream that came through a million years, that lived on through all the tears.
It came here, the Fandom Nexus.
Fabulous secret powers were revealed to our host as he plugged in his microphone.
I have a podcast!
Here he is, your Spider-Pan, Jeremy.
Yes, hello friends, we are back, and we are celebrating 11 years. Okay, now, all right, granted, we've only been the Fandom Nexus, I guess, since COVID, and we used to be the Neverland podcast. It's been a long, long road, and a lot of changes have happened around here, but 11 years finishing out today, about to start a 12th season. Holy cow, I can't believe I'm this old. But apparently I am old. But, you know, today it's not just special because of that, and we're going to go through, talk a little bit about some of the things over the years, because there'll be a great introduction we have some new people coming along here. Of course, now y'all know Francisco Ruiz. We call him the Game Master because he's created a game. Y'all got to hear from me before. We only did a segment with him before talking about a game he's created, and he's got some updates, I think, on that as well. I'm a little behind on y'all's podcast, but I refer to him as and I had the word in my head all week, and then the word completely left my head, and it's not cantankerous or whatever, but he's kind of the naysayer of Retro Rewind, Captain Francisco Ruiz.
I'm the captain of Retro Rewind. I'm not the naysayer.
Well, there's very few movies that you guys do a retro review that you're not calling it tragic.
Wow.
It's true, though. Everything's tragic, and I had the perfect word for it, and it just completely left me. And I was trying to look it up. I was actually Googling C word for a person who doesn't like...
Cantankerous, maybe?
No, cantankerous is not, because you're not a cantankerous type person. You're just kind of like that person who has that opposite opinion. And you're always...
Contrarian.
Contrarian. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. And I had it all week. I was like, I should write that down. That's perfect. So... But then, of course, brand new to us and brand new to the show here is his lovely wife, Ashley. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thanks for coming on. And people who are familiar with Retro Rewind will know her very much because she frequently helps out and comes and lends her point of view. And one of her points of view, and I'm a little behind on things because I have a lot of different shows I listen to, and I fell behind on a lot of stuff. I was trying to go and re-listen to all the Adventures in Odyssey episodes, mainly because I was having some of the creators of that show on the podcast over the past few years, and I wanted to make sure I was current as possible. So I'm a little behind on, so I'm actually listening to stuff at the early October, and here we're about to hit December. So I'm trying to narrow down how many different shows I listen to. But the fun thing is some shows I've added is because of people I've met through Retro Rewind. Because we've shifted gears, and that's a little bit of the history. As of course we started 11 years ago. I didn't intend for that to become a Disney podcast, but I was I wasn't in the full cult. There is a cult of Disney that no matter what they put out, people will be like, oh, it's the most wonderful thing. And I was one of those people who would be like, hey, something's not right here. And I noticed the more I went that way and the more I shifted direction, the more of my audience I lost. So I've been a completely rebuilding. And what finally changed the name of Neverland Podcast, even though I still have that website, to the Fandom Nexus is I was embracing all of fandom, and I made a shirt and I dared to put the word Disney in there because for a long time, one of our slogans was to Disney and beyond, because I was doing a little bit outside Disney, and I got the cease and desist on that real fast. So I'm like, okay, well, I've been like promoting all of your stuff, whether I've liked it or not, for years, and this is what you're doing to little old me. So I was like, I was done.
Sounds like the mouse to me.
Yeah. Wow, your voice was gotten a heck of a lot of echo. I don't know what happened. It was the voice of Francisco, Captain, echoing through. Yes. So we've gone a long way, and over the last couple of years, I've been able to share a lot more of my values in there. I've gotten connected with a lot more Christian podcasters, and we've kind of changed some direction, and we're slowly building a new following. And of course, for those of you who are not aware, Watching Movies with My Pastor is the other show where my pastor Philip, which y'all would be familiar with on the show, we watch movies, we talk about them. It's growing. I'm so happy for those of you who have made the jump over there. We're having some fun, and we're being idiots and watching movies. And my wife is right now playing Final Fantasy VII from 1997, which there's a reason why I'm going to get to that later. But that's everything. That's catching up on like the last 11 years. For those of you who might be new, and well, Ashley's probably completely new to this is what has landed us here to where, of course, we're going to be kind of a Disney topic a little bit with Star Wars because they own it. But we're going to talk about what Star Wars was like before Disney. But before we get there, okay, so now I finally get to fully bring them in because we have our typical things that we like to ask people. First, we start with, what have you been watching? Anything fun this week?
Go ahead, Ashley. You start.
Okay. I had my mic muted because I wanted to try to limit the echo because we're in the same room.
I know that feeling because I'm on my co-host microphone. Oh, I'm knocking stuff over there with my internet thing. That's a Google Fiber thing. I'm about to put that back on.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. But I understand because I have a cheaper microphone that's over here next to me, and I've tried to have people in the room, and my voice carries like you wouldn't believe. So my voice would always pick up on the other side. Yeah, I understand that completely.
Yeah, we know it well. But as far as like what I've been watching, husband and I, we kind of burned through the second part of the 6th season of Cobra Kai. We watched it all in one night because it got released and it's like, oh, heck, we have this time. Let's do it. And it was like, okay, just 2 episodes. And then 2 episodes became 3. And then it became all of them. And Francisco tried really hard to be the voice of reason. But I'm like, come on. We don't have anything to do the next day. So we did that. And I really wasn't exposed to the Karate Kid or any of that world.
Wow.
And Francisco had me watch the first Karate Kid movie. And then it was like, okay, let's watch Cobra Kai. And I found myself reluctantly liking it and then almost being a complete and utter fan of it. And then anytime they've been releasing these new seasons, and whether parts or all at once, I've become a huge fan of Cobra Kai. And we watched that. Recently, we got to experience the English release of Dragon Ball Daima as a Fandom event, and that was super duper fun for us. And the only other thing that I've been watching as of late is I binged watched every single episode of Team 4 Star's Dragon Ball Z Abridged. I did that over the course of this past weekend. I made it through all 60 plus episodes and I want to say like 6 of the 12 DBZ abridged movies that they covered as well.
Goodness.
So big DBZ fan.
Apparently, yes. I tried to get into Dragon Ball Z, but I felt like, I guess they've recut these here lately, but I used to watch them when they would come on like Sunday mornings. And they spent half the episode talking about, I'm more powerful than you and I will defeat you because of this. Yeah, well, I'm more powerful and I'm going to defeat you because of this. Then finally, at the end of the episode, a punch is thrown and then catch us next week. And it happened over and over and it drove me crazy and I just couldn't.
It's a slow burn for sure.
But I've heard they've tried to recut to where they take a lot of the excess dialogue out and like just try to get to it. So I'm like, maybe I should try again, but I don't know where to go. If you wanted to go from the beginning, I have no idea where to go.
Yeah, if you wanted to start with a lot of the filler cut, a lot more action focused, it has a faster pace. It's more faithful to the manga. A lot of people would recommend Dragon Ball Z Kai. I'm not entirely sure what platform that is on because I haven't watched it all the way through in a really long time since it aired on Nickelodeon way back when. But Dragon Ball Z Kai would be where you would want to go for that faster paced, less filler.
It might be on Crunchyroll. My wife has an account with Crunchyroll because she's the anime nut around here. And then she'll find something and say, Jeremy, come watch this. And sometimes I get into it, sometimes I don't. There's certain animes that I've gotten really into, and then sometimes she gets me into one. Have you ever watched? Oh, it's something about the Shield Hero. I can't remember the full title.
Rising of the Shield Hero. Absolutely. Francisco got me into that.
And we're left right when and I love this character, and I cannot think of her name, the little dog girl. And she's suddenly, we got to a cliffhanger where she's got people kind of trying to assassinate her because she dressed in a way like she's supposed to be usurping the royal family. Yes, I love her. And we cut off when she's supposed to be having assassins coming at her because she's supposed to be claiming the royal family because of something she wore. And then we haven't gotten a new episode since. I'm like, Crunchyroll, come on. I think
that was the end of season 3.
Yeah, so, that was the end of 3.
So we're waiting for 4 now.
Yeah, we're waiting for 4, and we don't know how long we're gonna have to wait. Probably because they gotta make it, and then they gotta translate it, and then they'll finally. My wife says this has happened to her a lot in a lot of different shows that she likes to watch on Crunchyroll. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not used to having to be patient, and I keep trying to get her back. I liked Fairy Tail. We started watching that, and then I think she's just fallen off the wagon of Fairy Tail because I'm like, can we watch some Fairy Tail? And she's like, whatever. So. She's tried to get me. There's another season of Cells at Work on Crunchyroll. So, and I like that one. And my wife's a biology teacher. So, of course, Cells at Work is like, she's all about it. It's educational and fun. So that's still kind of fun to watch. But there's not a lot of anime I get into. I think the first real anime I got into was the original Full Metal Alchemist before they did the Brotherhood series. Love that one. Have the complete set of DVDs that somebody made for me. So they're not necessarily legal, but that's okay. But I loved that one. And I actually think, after reading the manga and seeing how the story went, I actually liked the first series better, how the story went around compared to the manga. It kind of, I know it had some really great ending battles, but when Brotherhood came out, I was like, this doesn't have the same emotional punch for me that the original series did. So, but yeah, loved it. Anyways, Francisco, you been watching anything fun this week?
Well, speaking of slow burn animes, I recently watched The Wind Rises. Ashley and I actually watched that together, but your expression, Ashley. It's a good movie. It's a Hayao Miyazaki studio Ghibli movie, and it's good, but it is slow. I watched it for the Cellcast podcast. I got to be guest on there, and so that was it was a good movie, but yeah, slow. Probably won't watch it again. Also watched a little bit of Batman the Animated Series.
Oh yeah.
And watched. I think the only other movie outside of the things that Ashley mentioned that I watched the riff tracks of Birdemic Shock and Terror again, just because I enjoy it. That's like a comfort movie for some reason. I just really enjoy it.
It's the look on Ashley's face at this. It's just very
never
funny.
Again.
Oh, come on. Well, of course, because you want to watch Laser Mission now, right?
Oh my goodness.
Are you familiar with riff tracks at all, Jeremy?
I'm familiar with it. And my wife just doesn't get some of the humor when we would go and watch like Mystery Science Theater 3000. So I haven't watched a whole lot of it. And sometimes when I see little clips of it, they're just knocking it out of the park and funny. Sometimes they're just like, it feels like they're trying hard to make something funny. I'm like, not really, but I think you watch it mainly to watch bad movies. So I think the only full episode I watched was it was a movie that had David Hasselhoff, and they were trying to capitalize on the popularity of Star Wars. It's like some battle for the planets or something. And it's David Hasselhoff as some weird prince. And then there's this girl who's basically wearing a bikini for no good reason. It's supposed to be her like spacesuit. It's a bikini and she's running around. It is so bad, but it's worth watching people to make fun of it. And I completely forgot, but it's basically they sometimes they like to claim that, oh no, we were going to do this before Star Wars. I'm like, no, you're at Star Wars exploitation like everybody else, like Battlestar Galactica was. Everyone was trying to capitalize. I mean, heck, even Star Trek was saying, hey, Star Wars gives us another chance to make a movie. Let's try something. But yeah, I'll have to look that up and I'll send it to you. But Riff Tracks, I think it was Riff Tracks that did it, and it's on YouTube, and they made fun of it. And that's the best way to watch a really stupid movie is to have them there to make fun of it. So yeah, there's some bad movies I will never watch, like The Room. I'm never going to watch it. I don't care. Some people think it's so bad it's funny. I'm like, it's probably torturous. So like Rocky Horror Picture Show, some people had me sitting we just watched it straight through, and I said, this is horrid. And I understand why people make fun of it, but the stuff they say is worse than the movie. So, yeah. But I'm trying to think now if I actually watched anything special this week, because I watch a lot of YouTube, and I've been like super busy this week with when I'm getting home, and then I've been trying to work up stuff for the podcast. I had to record 2 different episodes. I had to record which I mentioned before, watching movies with my pastor, I've been having to do things with my wife and play Final Fantasy VII, which I'm trying to bring her into because really, if she loves anime this much, she would love the characters in a Final Fantasy game, especially this one. This is like one of my top games. And clearly, as I pointed the camera earlier when we started to my 7 Aerith figures, hopefully to be 8. Aerith is my all-time favorite video game character. She actually reminds me of my wife, and I'm trying to get my wife to notice this. So we've got her now in the game where she's gotten to meet Aerith in the chapel. And so I was, oh, well, what did you think? And she knew that I wasn't really trying to ask specifically about what her thoughts on Aerith were yet, but she's like, I like that she likes all the flowers and she wears the nice dress. And so she's in a fantasy thing and she's not wearing some stupid bikini armor thing. And I was like, well, okay, we'll take that. But what I told her is one of the things that made her one of my favorite, of course, wasn't a favorite originally in 97. She was my favorite character in that game. And I didn't finish it because gaming magazine spoiled what was going to happen, and I stopped. And I was like, I don't like that. So I kind of left it, and I started playing like Metal Gear Solid or whatever, I think back in the day. But I've come back to it with the remakes, and they made her even better, which is something we're going to get to in the news. But I have
a question for you. I have a question for you about, like, have you experienced anything outside of the original Final Fantasy VII and the remake, like Advent Children? Would you introduce her to any of that in the expanded universe that they have? Because I have such a soft spot for that original voice cast that they had. And when they remake, I understand they wanted to reinvigorate it and get some fresh blood because they repurposed and it's got a completely different storyline. It's repurposed, it's reutilized. It really is, obviously, with the second game being called Rebirth and just all of this continuation, but kind of resetting it. I was so sad when they recast everybody because really? I had such a soft spot for everybody. I loved Advent Children. I loved every game that continued the story of Final Fantasy VII. So I guess as I'm sitting here listening to all this, you're playing the original and she's really liking it. I'm like, do you have any plans to share everything beyond that? Because it's such a full world and it's so fun.
I think she's seen, I've watched Advent Children a few times because each time I've played through the original game now, because after playing Remake, I was like, okay, I want to go back and play it, and finding that was available on PS4, because I used to, when I was younger in my 20s, I just didn't have the patience for random encounters. So that was frustrating. So adding the thing there, it's like, oh, my favorite character in here is going to, all right, spoiler warning, she dies in it. Okay, 1997. What? Yeah, I know. The game is like however many years old. I don't know, 1997. I guess I was 20 at the time in 97. Yes, I'm an old bugger. Okay. But yeah, shoot. And one of the things that I was about to say, although you have a good question there, like one of the things that makes her special is you have a limit break, which is basically you've reached your limit. I've reached my limit. Do you hear? As Dursley would say. So it's like you're at your maximum anger. What does she do? She doesn't strike out at her enemies. She heals her friends. That speaks to me. It makes me think, because everything, wow, it's like she's a complete different type of person, and they were really able to expand in the remake. And Mina Suvari voiced Aerith in Advent Children, and also did the Kingdom Hearts games, which I still haven't finished the first Kingdom Hearts because
they're fun. Yeah. I am a diehard Kingdom Hearts fan. Played those games well before I ever played Final Fantasy VII. I knew of the characters because I had friends that played the games, dated people back in the day that played the games, loved Advent Children when it came out, but diehard Kingdom Hearts fan, and they use so many of those same voice actors more often than not.
Yeah. And if you go back and I can't think what episode this is almost going to have been a year ago. I do have a recording of a panel where I think we had, and I can't think the actress's name, Rachel, who was Tifa.
Rachel Lee Cook.
Rachel Lee Cook was there, along with a voice who was did voices for Superman, and also was Sephiroth back then. And then I think we even had a Cloud voice who had done Advent Children. I think all three of them were, I have to remember, this has been a while, but I actually have audio of that panel, and it was fun to have them go and talk about working on Advent Children and different characters since then. I can't remember what episode number was. I was not prepared. I should have been. But y'all go check it out. I've got it titled for anyone into the Final Fantasy fans.
I have never been to a panel with anyone who voiced the original cast beyond the voice actor who played Reno. Ooh, cool. But he's fun because he voices a secondary character from the second Kingdom Hearts onward, and he becomes he's a baddie, and he has a fun redemption arc later in the game. But He's also Raiden in
Metal Gear.
In Metal Gear Solid.
Raiden, the character that,
yes.
Yeah, it's hard to like him because you wanted to play Solid Snake and all of a sudden I'm playing Raiden and I'm like, why am I playing this guy?
He's a super nice dude. I got to meet him back in a convention in 2019. There's like 3 pictures with him on Instagram. The only my only claim to fame is that we follow each other on X. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I can understand getting go ahead.
I was going to say, it looks like your episode for the cast of Final Fantasy VII Advent Children is Fandom Nexus 459.
There we go, 459. Francisco doing the research that I'm not. There we go. So yes, I had a great time actually at Planet Comic-Con, which, by the way, anyone in the local area, or if you plan on being at Planet Comic-Con, I've put in a bid for at least one panel. We're going to have Dan Vietz come back, and I know we're not a Disney show anymore, but I love the Disney connection we have to Kansas City. Dan Vietz will come and share about Walt Disney's time in Kansas City, and even the influence that it has had on him. There's stuff you might not even know. I'm still waiting to hear back from people from the Walt Disney Hometown Museum in Marceline. Hopefully they'll come down and give a presentation as well. I think I'm going to have to call over there and say, Kay, please come down again. This will be great. Because last year I tried emailing them. I never heard back. And then like the week of, I get a call from Kay Mallons from the museum. I was like, are we doing a thing at your Comic-Con? I hear it's this weekend. I said, I tried to email you guys. You guys don't reply. And I've now emailed them through 2 different accounts just in case one email wasn't working, but that is coming up in March. I don't have the exact dates, but for anyone planning to come down, that is a lot of fun. I do have Disney connections here in Kansas City still. So if y'all don't know like the entire history of Walt Disney Kansas City, if you ever decide you want to travel this way for a convention, you'll be shocked and amazed of how much stuff. I actually did a panel, and maybe I should do it again. We did a panel of what happened to a lot of the people that worked with Walt at the Laugh-O-Gram studio here in town, his first animation studio. A lot of the people who worked with him here went on to do things within Looney Tunes, Hugh Harmon, and Icing. They made Harmon Icing. I can't remember. Was it Rudolph Icing, I believe? I'm probably getting that wrong. Somebody's probably yelling at me, but yeah, a lot of the great animation that we, of our generation, well, you guys are more millennials. I'm more of a Gen X. I'm that old. But you guys were born in the 80s, so we'll count you, as you would have grown up getting to watch some of these old classic Looney Tunes and Woody Woodpecker and all that. So
I consider myself Gen X. So
cool.
He considers him. I'll call him an honorary because technically, yes, reluctantly, he is a millennial. I will embrace it because I was born at the end of 86. So I am firmly a millennial.
Yeah. 9 years age difference. I'm an old man. But you grew up still getting to watch a lot of those old cartoons that like Gen Z, they're not getting to see it as much.
Yeah.
But
I was spoiled. I'm so sorry.
But a lot of those ones we grew up with, a lot of those animators, you'd be surprised, came from Kansas City. And if Walt's first business hadn't failed, who knows? We might have had the hub of animation here instead of Hollywood. Who knows? It could have happened. But, shoulda, coulda. But anyways, for anyone interested in Planet Comic-Con, will be in March. I don't remember the exact dates, but make your plans to come. And hopefully I get approved for my panel. I usually do for that one. That's been a popular one. We get a lot of turnout for that. So we are making plans. Okay, I think we've covered enough of what we've been watching. And so the second question, we always like to go and say, what have you been playing this week?
I'll start this time. For me, I've been playing, lots of different things. I typically will play every week XCOM 2 a little bit. I always do an Iron Man run. I never get very far, but I'm hoping one of these days I'll push through and then I'll get somewhere a lot further and then die. But then I'll know I can finally do it. But right. Playing that, I played a little bit of Into the Breach earlier today just because I haven't played it in a while and wanted to fire it up. Playing Sea of Stars, still continuing through that storyline. I love it. Is such a good game. I actually got it for me for my birthday. Oh, it's just wonderful. I bought the vinyl for myself, even though I don't have a record player. But that's a great game. I'm trying to think if there's any other things. I also play this little tactical CCG called Duelist 2, which you could play that on stream. It's like you have like a 10x10 grid and you can place characters on, and the characters themselves are all pixel art, which I really like. And then you just try to destroy the general of the player you're playing against. I think feel like there's probably something else, but those are the main things I've been playing.
Yeah, XCOM 2 is something on my list I want to try because I've seen some gameplay and it looks really cool but challenging. So
yeah,
I just
absolutely.
have a stack of other games I'm trying to get through.
I totally get that.
The backlog, it's a real thing. So is Ashley, what you playing?
Oh, I'm more of a cozy gamer, comfort gamer, nostalgic gamer. I game in phases, and most recently, the two games that I have played is I was feeling a little nostalgic and played a couple of minutes of Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer on Steam.
Yes.
So I played that. I blew up my pod racer within the first 5 minutes. I'm like, yep, that tracks.
Well, you have to play with keyboard though, which seems very annoying.
It was with keyboard because it's not compatible with controller, which is strange. And I'm like, I have all these Star Wars games. Like I have KOTOR, I have Jedi Fallen Order. I've got all these different games on Steam that I've bought. I even have the pixel remasters of the first few Final Fantasy games. I have Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, 10. Played 10 too many times, but not recently. But I have all these games that I don't play. I go back to things that I'm nostalgic about. So the few minutes until I blew up of Pod Racer. And then the game that I continually go back to just because it's fun, I like to recapture like childhood, is I will fairly frequently go back and play the original Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Ooh.
Because that game came out in 99. I want to say it came out in the spring of 99. It might have been summer, but that was the year that I turned 13. So I was still like, oh, we have this cool PC. We have dial-up internet. Can't really use it all that often. So my brother and I would take turns playing scenarios because we both really loved that game. And we still nostalgically play it to this day. And really, one of the last times I played it, my stepson wanted to play with me because he loves building roller coasters. His dad introduced him to the game and he likes to play it and ask questions of, oh, how do I do this? Or how do I do that? So it's been fun to not only share that love of that game, but be able to play and watch and share knowledge with one another. So it's really fun.
I've tried at least, I can't remember what this one it might be a version of Roller Coaster Tycoon. I know it's on Steam, but I started playing with it because I saw people, they were able to, when they're creating they could create a dark ride and they were able to bring stuff from other movies, like music and pictures from like movies. And they were making ride for aliens or whatever, stuff like that. And I was like, I want to be able to do that. And I figured, okay, on console, I wouldn't be allowed, but on, I guess, a PC, you can upload your own stuff. So I wanted to do that, but I'm not clever until I get good at something, I can't really get creative. And I messed up trying to build a roller coaster and I haven't really been back. But it's like really cool. But it's like, I want to build it, but I don't know what I'm doing and I break everything. So I try. So like that Dreams that's on PS4 and everything where you can create your own little games. I'm like, really cool. But the mechanics to build something is really difficult. And so I have a hard time, but it is neat to see what other people have managed to create. And I'm impressed. It sort of reminds me of like, did y'all play Disney Infinity?
Do I look like someone that's going to play a Disney game?
You live in California, so you probably get to Disneyland more often than I've only been to a Disney park once in my life. So
I think you're thinking of Paul. We're up in Oregon.
Oh, you're the one. I thought Paul was the one in Oregon. Oh, no. Okay. I don't know. Either way, it's West Coast, and you probably got to deal with a lot of crazy people over there anyway.
I'm a hardcore Disney fan, and I haven't even played it. When I would see promos for it, I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, this just feels like a Disney-fied ripoff of Skylanders. I can't get on board with it.
Well, it was all started from who did it first? I don't think Skylanders was the first one that did pieces.
I don't know.
Everybody was
on Nintendo.
Amiibo was a follow up, but yeah, everybody started trying to make these, bring your toys into a game thing.
I hated it all.
But Disney Infinity, you could create games basically inside of stuff, and then you could share them online until they shut it all down. Now I've actually had one of the creators. We had him at a panel at Planet Comic Con because he was best friends with one of my former co-hosts at the time. Great artist by the name of Adrian Ropp, by the way. He worked at storyboarding, I think the original Disney Infinity. He's done some work with voicing. He's drawn some comics like the Pink Panther and Underdog. Great artist. Even worked on Hogwarts Legacy. Great guy. So y'all can find him, by the way. But yeah, we got to have him on. And it was kind of cool. Disney Infinity was great. Some of the stuff people could make in games. And I would just make games that I could use myself. I would make basically like an underground maze and try to, go and see if I could get myself lost and then find my way back out again and make little traps and stuff, like which I used to do, like the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater back on the PS1. You make a skate park where you try to make everything. If I screw up, it's instant death. So I'd make a skate park and then I'd call it Skate or Die, and I'd try to get to it. And yeah, that's the thing. I try to create a death trap for myself and see if I can get around it. So yeah, Disney Infinity was fun for that. And that Dreams is kind of a similar thing, only it's more complicated with trying to make something. And I think the older I get, the closer to I'm eyeballing 50 in a few more years. And I'm thinking, my brain's getting to be a 50-year-old brain. I might be in a room full of toys, but the body is not keeping up with what my brain wants to do. So I've heard the right vitamins apparently are good for revitalizing your youth and brains. And Pastor Philip has been telling me that he's been taking some more vitamins, taking care of himself, especially with the knee surgery. And he says it's almost like a cloud has been lifted from his brain. And as a pastor, he feels like he's getting a lot more from God, even directly now that his brain's more functional. It's like he's able to listen better. And God's been dealing with a lot of that stuff in his life. So maybe the right vitamins make your brain healthy, and you never know. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking about that. That might help me to be able to think, because I can't keep up anymore. Anyways, enough of me talking about being old. I just feel my age when you talk about being 13 in 1999. I was like, really? I was 22.
I hear it all the time.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. So what have I been playing this week? Well, I didn't get a lot of time to play because I was working on stuff, and I'm still trying to get a Mocha effect to work in After Effects, where I'm trying to make some more promos for watching movies with my pastor. Mocha is supposed to be able to track, and I had some fun. For anyone who might have seen me share this, I was looking at my job where I make ads for local TV. I was looking for some happy holidays things to tag on because we're making Christmas ads, and randomly there was this girl in a bikini on a green screen. I said, well, what? And then I got the weird idea. And because I have an Adobe account myself, I was like, well, I can, when on my home computer, I could download that same thing. And I grabbed a bunch of different clips, and I basically have the bikini girl dancing in the movie theater that I use for my logo for watching movies with my pastor. And then I pop up and it's like, so did you click on the thumbnail for the girl? What if your pastor was sitting next to you watching this? And I said, that's the idea behind watching movies with my pastor. It's supposed to be completely awkward, and I suppose it would be, except for I've known Philip since we were kids. So, okay. But it's still a funny concept. And so I've been trying to work on that and trying to get a thing where there's one bikini where it's all you see is like the top from her chest down to her stomach. But I thought it'd be funny if I tattooed my logo on that and having her moving around, because I figured, you know what? I like to make fun of the current clickbait Instagram thing or thirsty pictures. And unfortunately, it does work, and people get millions of followers just for the appearance. And I'm like, I'm going to bait some people in. They're going to come for some bikini girl, and here comes my ugly mug. Hi. So I was trying to work on some of that, so I didn't get a chance to play. But I am trying to work my way through Red Dead Redemption 2. It's been quite a few years since I was playing it, because I got sidetracked, I think, probably first by the Final Fantasy VII remake, and then a bunch of other games. And then Jeff Barnes, former guest on the show, has written a couple of Disney books and everything. He got through and played it and was just raving on how much he loved it. And I thought, I really do need to finish that game. And so my experience has been trying to remember how to do everything. And I'm so used to playing different games where the right trigger sometimes when you're in a vehicle will make the vehicle go forward. Well, in Red Dead Redemption, that's on the X button or cross button, however you're supposed to say it for PlayStation. So I accidentally will pull the right trigger up on my horse. And what the right trigger is, shoot somebody. So I will randomly kill some guy. And then I'll go load up a save, because I'm trying to be the Heart of Gold outlaw and be as white hat as possible for a guy who's supposed to be a train robber. So then now I was trying to remember, there's a button to get your horse to stop, and I couldn't remember which one it was. And turns out the button I was hitting was the one where you kick at things or punch at things from your horse. And I kicked a barrel over and got wanted for vandalism. So I'm trying to remember how to do stuff, and I want to get through it, but it's a good thing I got a little bit delayed, because I pre-ordered and I was expecting through the mail the Capcom Marvel fighting game collection, where you have like the original X-Men Children of the Atom. I mean, this was my teenage to a young adulthood in the arcades was playing these games. So I'm looking forward to this coming. It's supposed to come in the mail. The post office says Monday. So on coming Monday, I might forget that I have a podcast to record, or that it's Thanksgiving. I'll be like, well, when people come over for Thanksgiving, I'm like, hey, you want to come play this? Come on. So we might just be doing that.
I was really big into, I had Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on my Dreamcast back then. And I just played that so much. And my mains were Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I'm totally. Oh, Ken, because I'm a big Ken fan from Street Fighter, and I forget who my third one was, but yeah, exactly, Spider-Pan. But yeah, I remember just having the like combos, just totally like set. But when I would go to the arcade, I was just horrible. So I was like, I wish I could just take my Dreamcast controller and plug it in, and then I'd mop the floor with all these people. But no.
Yeah. And the arcade versions are usually a little bit more difficult because they're trying to get your quarters. And
they want all your quarters.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, in terms of playing other people, I was just not good. But
yeah, there's always.
You owned those computers?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yes. Maybe.
Yeah, I was a lot better on a home console playing Mortal Kombat 3 than I was in the arcade. There's people I'm like, I'm just going to watch you because you're awesome at this. That kind of thing. I would usually just play the computer because I don't even play many online games where I have to go versus because I'm not the right mentality. I'm good enough at games, just enough for me to have fun. I'm one of those guys. I will put it on story mode because I will like to experience the adventure in the story. Francisco was trying to fix the blur of his camera or something. He took his
my camera. I'm right here. My eyes are up here. Look at me. Focus here.
See, if you're not Patreon members, you miss out on the fun things that happen on video. Like I want to, speaking of being the Spider-Man fan that I am, I don't know if y'all got to see what I have over here. So for my birthday, Philip actually got me one of the old classic Spider-Man 60s where he's wearing the cloth hair with a young Crisis Core Aerith. And I have him buddied up because I've told my wife, I was like, seriously, honey, you're Aerith. You just don't know it yet. So that is kind of us as toys. So I put them together. My wife gives me weird looks when I do that, but I was like, dude, that's totally us. I'm the Spider-Man. You are the Aerith.
Of course.
For the most part. I'm just not a scientific genius. She's the scientist between the two of us. So, but yeah, I'm thankful that, considering some people would say I've bought a lot of dolls of Aerith, I still have more Batman figures, more Spider-Man figures, and more He-Man figures than I have of Aerith. So, and I did. I counted like, see, so I'm not just buying all Aerith figures. I'm just getting her caught up with Spider-Man a little bit. So I'm not that weird. Certainly. Okay. All righty. But anyways, enough of the goofy stuff. I actually have some news this week. I know we usually don't do this anymore, but 10 points for if you know where this music actually comes from. It's a MIDI file version.
Spanning the Disney and geek universe to bring you the best in comics, toys, movies, and entertainment. This is news from around Neverland.
And I really need to make a new bumper for news because really we're not the Neverland podcast, but I still use that. But that was a MIDI file where somebody did their own version of the theme from Kid Icarus.
Oh, I kept swearing that was Batman.
Yeah.
Kid Icarus, the game you started and you're like, eh.
Yeah, I mean,
I still haven't finished it.
It's a pretty cool game,
tough.
but it's tough. I never get very far.
Yeah.
But I do have a couple of links I'm going to go to for different news stories, but some fun stuff has happened along the way. Wednesday, Ralph Macchio got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and apparently very near to Pat Morita. And I've seen some fun video of him and Billy Zabka out there, posing around the star. Makes you feel good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of Cobra Kai and Karate Kid. So I don't really have any articles to share about that, but I've been seeing the videos and it's just very, very cool. Very, very deserving. There was one other thing that I thought was neat that I didn't put in my notes, so I won't mention, but there's something else. I was like, oh yeah, this was kind of a cool thing too. But I'll just go up to the things I've pulled up. This directly from Square Enix. Oh, I have to accept cookies real fast. They have won 4 Golden Joystick Awards, which I think this is mainly Britain's awards. But let's see here. They won the full list of awards here. Best Storytelling, Best Soundtrack, Best Lead Performer, Cody Christian, and Best Supporting Performer, Brianna White. Now, what game am I talking about? Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. They even have some quotes that they posted to their Twitter accounts. Cody Christian, who voices Cloud. Thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart. And he's got the little hands making things. And it looks like he's got a link or something. Maybe that's the link to the thing. And then Brianna White, who I think has been doing a fantastic job of playing Aerith, and which I really appreciate, being that she's my favorite of all time. And she says, Aerith reminds us all that life is so short, so fragile, and so timeless, so we might as well have fun with it. A beautiful and moving speech from the wonderful It's Brianna White as she accepted her Golden Joystick Award for Best Supporting Performer as Zareth Gainsborough. Oh, okay. Maybe that's what this, I was reading stuff I thought she tweeted, but I guess it's actually from Golden Joysticks, and they get, apparently there's some video of that. I'm going to have to check that out later. But I really appreciate them winning some awards already, and not only winning some awards, but there's also some nominations for the Game Awards. They are one of the top nominated games of this year, other than Astrobot, which Astrobot is more of a platformer. I don't really like 3D platforming, but that game has really caught on. Let's see here. Oh, but this is not listing just particularly the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth nominations. It's just got everybody's on here. But just to go through the game that I'm focusing on, Game of the Year is a nomination. We've also got Best Game Direction. Let me slide down here. I think they also, Best Narrative. I should have pulled up this article from somewhere else. But also, I will mention, Best Score in Music. That's got to be mentioned. And also, Brianna White, voice of Aerith, is also nominated for Best Performance for her work as Aerith and everything. And I hope she does it. You can, on the Game Awards website, which those of you who follow on Facebook over for the Fandom Nexus, I did put a link up there where you can go and vote for your favorite picks for all the different awards. And if you see a category that you don't know anything about, you can skip that particular thing. And I did that a few times because there were some that I was like, I haven't played any of these games. I don't know anything about this. And so, so I'll have all the nominations and the wins. And now I remember what the other bit of news things I've seen. Speaking of them being up for Best Music and Score, I learned something interesting this week. And not just the fact that Creeping Death by Metallica was actually a telling of the Ten Commandments movie. I just learned that today. If you all check out Professor of Rock. But I was just like, what? Okay. The song from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, No Promises to Keep. Now, a lot of people have speculated that song is about Cloud or about Zack. The writers of there's a video now, the Square Enix Music on YouTube. They talk about that song is actually Aerith speaking to all of her friends because they're all special to her. And now that leads me towards my speculation. And I have hashtagged this. I hashtag Aerith Lives. My point of view on this is that in this weird multiverse that we've been introduced to for those who've played Rebirth, she's alive in at least one of them. And Cloud is aware of that because we do see him kind of save her. Now, some people say Cloud's an unreliable narrator because he's got some serious mental problems and he doesn't seem to remember things from trauma. But I'm saying, though, in some versions, she's alive because that is clearly an I Want song. And any Disney fan knows an I Want song says if that girl does not or guy does not get what they want, we're all going to be disappointed. So she talks about this song that for maybe I hope one day that you'll find me. So game 3, I want them to find her. It'll be a complete divergence from the original story, but they need to find her. And I want her reunited with Zack, dadgummit. But yeah.
Get used to disappointment.
Don't break my heart. Don't break my heart, Mike. Okay, I'm sorry. I was about to go achy breaky hair mistakey on that one. But yes, so that is some interesting things that I saw popped up in some news this week that I'm pretty excited about. The Game Awards, even last year, I think it was in the Game Awards where they first performed No Promises to Keep with Lauren Allred, came out, and she's a very talented singer. Apparently she's in the Hugh Jackman musical about one of the circus guys. Yep.
The Greatest Showman.
Thank you. She's apparently
one of my
in that
least
one.
favorite movies.
I haven't seen. Well, yeah, you've got a lot of least favorite movies.
Either.
How dare you?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of movies that you actually did enjoy. My goodness sakes, you didn't like Chicken Run.
Yeah,
and we got a new Wallace and Gromit
coming.
I think we saw Chicken Run in the theater like 2 or 3 times. We loved it. So
I really like Frailty. I classic that up.
I haven't gotten to that episode yet.
Okay.
And that's one of the ones that I have not heard of the movie. So I'm like, I don't know if I should listen to that episode, but maybe I will.
It has a twist in the movie. So if you're okay with that being spoiled, yeah, you could watch it. You could listen.
A twist can be fun. So we'll see. I don't know. But I was just like, I remember even in your group thing when you mentioned that, and I was like, I've never even heard of that movie. But I did see it pop up on Vudu as a recommendation for Halloween. So I was like, but I don't know if I should watch it. And I was thinking if Francisco actually likes it, then maybe, because it's got to be amazing if Francisco liked it.
Right? All the movies I love are amazing. I mean, that just goes hand in hand with Francisco.
Toot your own horn, why don't you?
He broke out the bugle. Oh my goodness. Okay, now turning the corner into main content. For anyone who has been like, hey, I haven't listened in a while. What happened to the trailer park? Well, the trailer park is now a Patreon or Red Circle exclusive. If you would like to hear me comment on any current movie trailers or occasionally a game trailer, it will be in those episodes exclusive, which I did just release one because there was a lot of trailers and I'm covering a lot of stuff from Angel Studios. There's a lot of great things coming in the coming months that I'm pretty excited about.
We're about to go see Bonhoeffer this weekend, so
I need to get out to that one. Did you get to see the best Christmas pageant ever yet?
People have recommended it, but no, we haven't seen it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's so good. So good. Little Girl About made me cry. I love kids anyway. And those kids did a great job in that movie. And when you have, I don't know if you're how familiar with the story you are, because I mean, this is an old book. There was a 1980s TV movie, but when the lead kind of antagonist child, when you kind of get to know her and know kind of how that her family is the way they is, but she has this moment where you realize she gets it of what the story is about. And I don't want to say anything, but I tell you what, as they say in Scrooged, Niagara Falls, I was feeling it there. My Christmas spirit just leapt up about a month early, but it'll make you look at Christmas the way it should be looked at, of how special this whole story and what happened, what it is. So I gave it a stunning recommendation already on the podcast last week, but I cannot recommend it enough. Take the whole family. You will all laugh together. You will cry together, and you'll go away appreciating how brave Mary had to be for that whole thing. It's a great movie. Really loved it. And I'm kind of hoping now, because apparently there's a couple of sequel books, like the best Halloween ever and the best school year ever. I'm like, I've never heard about those, but maybe those could be made into movies. Dallas Jenkins, man, go for it, brother. He did a really great job with his movie. So, but now we're going to dive way back. Now, there's other than the fact that Star Wars is amazing, there's a special reason why it's special to me. So, May 25th, 1977, Star Wars releases to theaters, small theaters, but that's when it was released. May 26th, the following day, I'm born. So when I tell people I grew up with Star Wars, I'm not just talking about I grew up and I was watching Star Wars. I'm talking I couldn't have come any closer unless I was born one day sooner. I like to joke and tell people the reason why I wasn't born on the 25th is Mom was busy in the theater and was holding me back while she could watch the movie. So, but my mom wasn't a Star Wars fan. She was a big Disney fan though, but not the big Star Wars fan. So I'm, of course, and as I've learned, of course, of you two, the original trilogy, I'm one of them old school people that I don't call it episode 4. I don't call it A New Hope. That's Star Wars. And even though the funny part about me is I didn't get to see them in theaters, my mom would keep me from thinking they were kind of too violent for me or something. So she kind of kept me from watching The Empire Strikes Back. So I read the book of The Empire Strikes Back, and then I saw the movie Return of the Jedi when it came on cable. And then I finally later got to come back and watch The Empire Strikes Back. But I was allowed to watch the first Star Wars as many times as it was on TV, constantly. I have even vivid memories of a bright Saturday that I would watch Star Wars in the morning, and then we went to Worlds of Fun, a local theme park there that afternoon. It was the perfect day. And I guess that's become a core memory. And of course, growing up kind of poor white kid, I didn't have copies of the movies directly on VHS. So I would watch them when they'd come on cable. And then when a friend of mine would buy them, we'd just kind of meet our VCRs together. I'd get a blank tape and I would just, there we go. Now I can watch the tape. And so I would frequently.
How this happened? That's weird. The movie was here. Now it's over here. It's magic.
I don't know how, but I had, of course, one videotape that had all 3 movies on it. And I would put it into VCR, even as a teenager. And I would just play the movies to play myself to sleep. So that's the weirdness of me. I can't sleep without something on there. I've even fallen asleep. I told my wife, well, we've been playing the original Final Fantasy VII, the prelude music. I when I first got that game, I loved it so much that I turned the brightness down on my TV so it wouldn't be so bright, and I just played that music and I put myself to sleep a few nights that way too. So, but yeah, I slept literally with Star Wars singing me to sleep in its own weird way with the music of John Williams, and so it's been very important to me. And I grew up in an age when after Return of the Jedi, we had other than there was, I think, Splinters of the Mind Eye or something. There was a Han Solo book, but we had this long gap until finally Heir to the Empire. And we went ballistic. It's like we finally had that sequel. And I remember reading, and I read that whole trilogy, but I couldn't tell you anything about it. I need a new copy of it. But I bet Now, see, actually, I bet you might be able to remember more of it than I do. I don't know. Have you read those?
I recall reading that, yes, but I have a very different timeline with Star Wars. I didn't grow up with it per se. I didn't even really know what Star Wars was until I was about 10. And it was actually when the original trilogy, it was the 20th anniversary of the original Star Wars. I saw a trailer for it on TV and I'm like, Dad, what the heck is this? Oh, and my father would tell me, oh, that's the first Star Wars movie. And my family, we actually went to go see it in theaters, and we only saw the first one in theaters, and I wanted to see the second and third. So when we were visiting family in Rhode Island a couple months later, we actually went to the local Blockbuster and got both of them, and we watched them in my cousin's living room. And I was just so like awestruck and just like fell in love with it instantaneously. This was in like later in 1997, because it was a couple months before I saw the second and third of that original trilogy. And then I loved it so much. My father took me to Blockbuster and we bought the trilogy on VHS. And I can't tell you how many times I would watch those movies on repeat. And once I found out that there was an expanded universe in books, I went to my local library and I literally started with a book that took place almost immediately after Return of the Jedi. And I want to say it was called The Truce at Baccarat was the first book that I ever read. And that really was, it took place immediately, like months after Return of the Jedi. And it creates the world and it establishes the New Republic, and they're trying to rebuild after their victory over the Empire. And I just read every book pretty much in chronological order after that and consumed. And eventually I caught up to where the books were in real time. And I can just tell you, waiting for new books to be released, we go to the local mall about 40 minutes away and go into a Walden Books and get the next release and like immediately just read the book and devour it. And then find like tangentially related books that had related characters or they were designed specifically for kids, but just eating it all up again and again and again and again and again. And I can't tell you how many. I had a hutch on my desk and it had 3 shelves on it and they were filled to the brim with Star Wars books. And when I was in 6th grade, they released this series within the EU called The New Jedi Order. And oh my goodness, it was so it built such a world and it had me so enchanted with the world and all of the people who were really becoming that new Jedi Order, because there was this new threat from another galaxy and it was just so cool. And it took such risks and it just did something with that world that I never expected. And I loved it so much. Like, can I just tell you that I was way into Barbies as a little girl. And I would actually take my Barbie dolls and I would assign different character names. Like I had a Leia Barbie. I had, because in the time of the New Jedi Order, you've got all of the descendants of the mainline Star Wars characters because Han and Leia get married. They have 3 children. They have a set of twins themselves, Jason and Jaina, and they have a younger son named Anakin because Leia eventually comes around to really forgiving her father and coming to terms with who she is. She gets a little bit of Force training and Luke rebuilds the Jedi Order, and it's just such a cool thing. And there's actually novels that go with the twins and even the younger son as they're going through Jedi training, living on Yavin 4 at Luke's Jedi Academy. And I got so connected to those characters that I used my teenage Skipper dolls to be to be like Jaina and all the other girl dolls. And I had a doll that I identified as Luke Skywalker's future wife, Mara Jade. And I just went to town. I would create my own stories because I loved that world so much. I wanted to create my own adventures. And because I didn't have Star Wars figures and they were always going to be like the little teeny ones. I'm like, no, I want to play with Barbie dolls because I feel like I can really build this world. And I did that for a couple of years until I realized, Ashley, you're 13. What are you doing? But I had so much fun doing that. But just the worlds that were built, the characters, and gosh, it was an experience just being around as these books were coming out, waiting months to a year for the next novel to get released and just feeling so excited. And I was reading those novels up until the point that Disney bought Star Wars. And then
dun, dun, dun.
And then the EU became Legends, and it's like these characters that I fell in love with, they were like reduced to just the thing of myth, and it made me very sad because it was a time to be alive and experiencing it as it was happening and being like wanting and waiting. Like I can only imagine like being back in the time after the first Star Wars came out, waiting for The Empire Strikes Back, waiting for Return of the Jedi, but you're waiting years and years and years. Whereas if you were reading the novels, they had so many teams writing, so many authors participated in this expanded universe that they were writing. There were books coming out every 6 to 12 months, so you weren't waiting as long. And they would take these different points, and even though you had so many different authors contributing to this universe, they were true to the characters that were developed, and they would just create and just build more and more worlds. And what a time.
He-Man and the Masters of the Universe will be back right after these messages.
Kroger Delivery makes it easy to do your holiday shopping in a jingle. There might be a lot on your to-do list, but thanks to Kroger Delivery, you can get everything you need delivered straight to your door at the same great prices you'd find in store. Our refrigerated trucks always ensure that your groceries arrive fresh. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order of $75 or more and get free delivery with a Boost membership. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
And now back to He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
I tried to keep up with that, but as I got when a lot of these other books, I think the like Heir to the Empire, I think I was still, what year was that? I pulled up a list so I
need to look this up because I'm like, did I read? Yes, I did read Heir to the Empire. I did read that. I read the Thrawn trilogy. I read all of them, and they were gripping. Those were the first ones I remember they had at my library. And I remember having those and just shaking, seeing the blue face. And Thrawn was just such a villain. Mm-hmm. And it's just, even though you knew the Empire was gone, like his remnant, the Imperial remnant that he had, oh my, he was definitely a threat.
Yeah, 1991 is when that came out. So I would have been I think it was, I was still an 8th grader at the time and in between, but it came out every year. 1991, 92, and 93 was for the original trilogy. So I was entering into high school in there, and I remember reading them, but I couldn't tell anything that happened other than I remember Luke being kind of abducted by Mara Jade, or Mara Jade. I call her Mara in my head.
She's Mara in my head canon too.
So you had this weird, interesting story where, and I was trying to sit there and think like, was she somewhere in Return of the Jedi and I'm just forgetting that there was another dancer? Did I just not see her? And I started looking for her, but you don't see her.
Find her.
But she's there. Okay, she's there. So I remember that story. And then also when someone finds a cloning facility and realizes that Thrawn is starting to clone, it's like, this is supposed to be illegal. But yeah, I remember reading those, but I checked them out in the library at the time, and there was a waiting list at the library for everybody was excited. Like, we finally got new Star Wars. And I think where I continued from there, and I have quite a good set. Well, I can't see them. I've got a bunch of stuff in the way. I have a whole bunch of the X-Wing books that were following Wedge as the new Rogue Squadron. And I have a bunch of those books, and I've only read maybe a couple of chapters of the first book. I would just collect them to have them, but I wasn't getting around to reading them. And I have a lot of books like that. And even now, I feel like I collect books, because I even have 3 volumes that are collected. I have the entire Oz series, which I feel like I really need to read so I can tell people why Wicked is horrible.
Read them all. I want to say there's between 14 and 16. I've read through it twice. And what I like to do is tell people the difference between the books and even the original Wizard of Oz movie, and how like the sequel that they made in the 80s, the Return to Oz movie, combines elements from 2 to 3 different books, but the books still do it better.
Yeah. I know I've gone through like the audiobooks. So I've worked in offices and I've done the audiobooks of the first 2 books and realizing just how different it was. And I've even had a cousin tell me that even though they were aimed at children, they were making commentary on some of the political things going on at the time, apparently as well, that I guess if you know a bit more history, you can understand how it's related to how different characters actually represented to different people.
Yep.
But apparently this was like as big as something like Harry Potter would have been when those books were coming out, when these would come out every year.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
so
they
I need to sit down and read them.
Have a festival in the hometown of L. Frank Baum. He's from upstate New York. And yeah, they have a festival every single year, just paying honor to him and his legacy that he has through the books. I want to say that he is from a small town called Chittenango. I need to find this out. Oh,
she's going to dig into that. But like other stuff I collected that I did read is there was some Spider-Man novels.
Chittenango, New York.
See,
a very, very, very small town in upstate New York in Madison County.
Now I kind of want to go check it out. That would be fun. Because I bet they do a whole thing where people are dressed up and everything. I could just see it in my head. That would be really cool.
Chittenango's like an hour, about an hour from where I grew up in upstate New York. So
wow, you went from one coast to the other coast. My goodness.
Yeah, and went to Colorado for about 10 years in between. So
at least you stopped somewhere to appreciate the mountains.
It's weird. I always thought Chattanooga was in Tennessee, but
I said Chittenango.
Yeah, Chattanooga. That's what I said.
Not Chattanooga, Chittenango.
No, I think I'm hearing it right.
I feel like Paul J. Powers is about to walk in there watching the wrong movie and hit the rewind button again. So if you don't get that, y'all need to listen to Retro Rewind, even if you'll never understand a single word that the onboard computer says.
How dare you? It's very clear.
I salvo authority is all I ever get, and it's because you keep repeating the salvo authority and like, okay, I guess that's what it said.
Salvo at the ready is what it says.
Okay, whatever that means. It's very confusing. I think it's the accent your computer has. I don't know, but I never understand it. So the salvo authority, every time I hear somebody say that, I'm like, that must be it. Whatever that means. And the look, y'all are missing out on the look that Francisco has right now. But yes, I bet you deal with that every week. That's that part of the fun of listening to y'all's show, by the way, is you and Paul and your goofy banters that you kind of, it's almost like it's a planned thing. It's just the way you two relate. It makes it very, very fun. So there's a quick little plug in, by the way. So yeah, I'm a collector of books, but not necessarily always getting them read. I have to be really super excited for a book to sit down on it. It's like and a lot of books I got through mainly because I listened to audiobooks in an office. And so a lot of the Star Wars books that I did get to go through when the prequels were coming out. And I tell you what, the prequels are special to me in their own weird way, because although we weren't even dating at the time, but my now wife and I waited in line for tickets to the Phantom Nexus, or no, the Phantom Menace. Okay.
The Phantom Nexus, you had tickets to it? Oh my gosh.
I know. Who knew? But yeah, the Phantom Menace, we waited in line for tickets. We went to an early showing. We went to that movie several times together. I never actually had a real problem with it. I mean, I understand, Jar Jar is funny at first and then it starts to get annoying, but I actually still really like the Phantom Menace. I still think it's a good movie. The only one of those movies that I still kind of waver on is Attack of the Clones, because I'm interested in Obi-Wan's detective story, but the love story falls so flat. It's so bad.
Yeah.
And I don't blame the actors. I blame the writing.
Sure.
So I think it's just really, really difficult to have somebody who's red flagging as he's slowly turning into his anger, and you see the dark side building in Anakin. It's hard to get behind him having a love story with Padme, and it's hard to follow. So
I get that.
But in between those, there's some really great books. And I have some audiobooks. There was one it's kind of a prequel to the Phantom Menace, and it follows Darth Maul around as he's given an assignment to assassinate some people. And you your main protagonist is basically the smuggler type, scoundrel guy, and he's got a protocol droid that he's kind of redone and made into like an almost assassin droid. And Darth Maul is coming after them because he kind of got in the way. And there's this really kind of fun story that goes all the way up to where Darth Maul thinks that he's killed the guy, and then he gets the assignment from Darth Sidious to go to, of course, come meet me at Coruscant. I have a mission for you. So it goes right into the Phantom Menace. And then you had a book where that was taking place in between the first two movies, where you have, and I cannot think of the name of the character. I'd probably have to get it down off my shelf. But Anakin and Obi-Wan have an adventure with these two ladies that is a Jedi and her student. So, and this student is supposed to be the same age as Anakin. And it completely got thrown under the rug with the Clone Wars series, where we get to meet these characters. And suddenly now Ahsoka is the same age as the apprentice that was supposed to be Anakin's age. So It's like they used those characters, but they didn't treat them the same way the original author had done. And they even had the apprentice kind of go dark side and become a nemesis towards Ahsoka there during the Clone Wars. And I cannot think of the character's name, but probably people who watch Clone Wars series more than I have are probably thinking, oh yeah, that character. But there is a book, and I cannot think of the name of it. It's over on my shelf, and it's I have the audiobook on cassette tapes, and it's not aimed where I can see the name of the book, unfortunately. But I really like to listen to a lot of audiobooks when I was, sit there, I would do data entry and a lot of my work. Now, of course, I have to use my ears so I can hear videos I'm creating, so I don't get to listen to a lot of audiobooks or even podcasts. But audiobooks used to be my way, and that's how I went through most of the Harry Potter books repeatedly, is listening to those. And then when a book had come out and I didn't have the audio yet, that's when I started sitting down and reading. And there was the excitement to read it, which I'm kind of imagine is more like how I actually was, talking about Star Wars books. So when you have that new book, and the last book that I got super excited about to read, and we're going back. See, there's a reason why I wore my Final Fantasy VII hat, because I recently got to read, it was like 2 stories. It's a Final Fantasy VII book, and it gives some backstory of Aerith and Tifa in 2 different sections of the book. And there's 3 sections of the book. There's another one that gives a little bit more backstory, but I just ate that book up. And like, if I could just read that quickly with a lot of other books, I'd probably get through some of these, because I've got some biographies of Walt Disney. And I've got one of the original ones from 1976. That was a reporter who had interviewed Walt Disney multiple times and wrote a biography off of all of his articles. I have that one in my bag, and I need to just sit and just start devouring some of these books that I have here and getting through them. Yeah. I wish I had Ashley's compulsion to read that much, but I'm impressed.
I was always an avid reader, voracious, collected Babysitter's Club books before I got into Star Wars, read like 200 of those.
Wow.
Yeah, but I think my single regret is that when I moved from New York to Colorado, I got rid of my entire Star Wars paperback and hardcover collection. I donated it to my local library.
Well, that's
I didn't feel bad about that, but I kind of have just a tiny bit of regret over getting rid of those, because to go back and to actually reread all of those books, I feel like it would be so hard to find them in this state. Well, you probably could find them.
Reprints as legends.
Yeah,
I think some of them.
Yeah, reprints as legends. But I'm like, there's just something about having the original source material in your hands. And I even remember reading the novelization of Revenge of the Sith. And just thinking like, oh, that's pretty. The novelization, it just added so many extra details. Yes. Conversations, background information. And I read it leading up to going to the midnight premiere of that movie when it released, because I was a senior in high school when that came out. And I just remember it being such an experience. And even though things happen in that movie, I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with Attack of the Clones, though. It just, things happened in there. It's just like, this is kind of dull. Usually the second one is supposed to like be like when everything is lost and people are regrouping. It didn't really feel that way compared to the original trilogy.
Yeah, and getting the soundtrack first, hearing the Imperial March at the end, I thought, oh, he's going to have turned by the end of this movie. That's exciting. And then it's like, oh no, this is the theme for the Clone Trooper Army. And it's like, oh, okay. Because he was red flagging so bad. I'm like, how is there a love story? Because it's so cringy. Because you see him going kind of temperamental and everything, and he's holding me back and all this stuff. And I'm like, this is how is Padme supposed to fall in love with him? Because he's red flags everywhere. But yeah, with Revenge of the Sith, I read the book, I think, before seeing the movie, because the movie disappointed me. Is it feels like Anakin turns to the dark side almost on a whim. But then you get in the book and you have all these other scenes where he feels like everybody's betraying him, because Padme is kind of in an early phase of the rebellion and meeting with all these people. and he doesn't, but Palpatine is like his mentor, and you see this devotion he's starting to develop to Palpatine, and he has the Jedi turning on Palpatine, Padme's turning on Palpatine, everybody else on there is like, you all just don't understand. You feel like the tension is building, and you could feel it in the book. But then when all those scenes are left out in the movie, it just seems like he just snaps all of a sudden and cuts off Mace Windu's hands, and you're like, wait. And so I didn't buy him going to the dark side until what turns out to be a necessary scene when he goes in. And I will admit, a not very choice word came out of my mouth when I saw he was going to kill the children, because I love kids. And when that lightsaber popped, I had a very bad name for him. I should not have said, but I did. But that solidified, okay, now I've got Anakin in my head as the bad guy. It's definite. He's turned, because that is like the ultimate nasty thing you can do. So, and I think that's why that's in the movie, because that's to help solidify in your head. It's like, oh no, we've lost the Anakin we knew from watching Clone Wars cartoon, where he was, he was a little faulty, but he was overall a good man. And we've lost him to the dark side. And we see what the dark side of the Force really seems to do to you and how it corrupts you. And you get that thirst for the power, and you hold on to your hate and your anger. And it's a lesson in our own bitterness if we hold on to it and we don't let it out or give it over to God, and what bitterness can do to you, and the darkness it can bring into your heart, and the anger and hatred, what it'll do, and it will change you. So there's your spiritual lesson for today. Let go of that bitterness, forgive. And if Anakin maybe had more forgiveness, perhaps it would have changed. But we get to see, that's why I like the redemption story we get in Return of the Jedi, because Luke, as you're talking about Leia having to be able to forgive her father, Luke had to find a way where he's like, no, there's good in him. There's good in him. My father is in there. And that's I think I will say honestly, a lot of people will of the trilogy will poop on Return of the Jedi as being terrible because they don't like Ewoks. How do you not like Ewoks?
Return of the Jedi is the best of the three.
Yes, exactly, because
not
the redemption
my favorite, but I love a good redemption. Honestly, redemption stories are my favorite, because if you ever do venture on into Kingdom Hearts, there's two big redemption stories.
Okay.
They happened with my two favorite characters.
All right, careful, because I'm like halfway through the first one. I was starting to play Kingdom Hearts again. I started over from the beginning of it because I have the set where it's like, and I even recently got the third one because I found it like for $5. So I've got it's the set from PS4 that had all the little side games even. And so I'm still trying to replay the first one, but the pull to go back and play Rebirth again was too strong for me. So I was went back, but I'm going to come back. The game mechanics are challenging for me, but yeah. But part of what makes like Empire Strikes Back, yes, it is a great movie. And I understand a lot of people, that's their favorite, but I think I've heard, I think Sam Witwer is where I heard him talk about it. And Sam Witwer, he's done some Star Wars video games. He recently got to play Captain Kirk. For anyone who's gotten to see that little short that came out this week, Unification and some numbers. He got to play a version of Captain Kirk, and they put William Shatner's face on him. It's amazing. But Sam Witwer, I heard him on a podcast saying, The Empire Strikes Back is great because of what we get Return of the Jedi. When you take everything you learn from Return of the Jedi, that the Emperor hasn't driven the goodness from Darth Vader fully, you start to look at The Empire Strikes Back as Darth Vader's hunting for Luke Skywalker, not because the Emperor tells him to, because that's my son. My son is alive. I want my son back. And it's why Darth Vader is trying so hard to get Luke to join him, because he doesn't see his way out of becoming from the dark side. And he thinks him and Luke together could overthrow the Emperor, but he wants his son back, and he'll do anything to get it. Because he could have killed Luke, but he holds back. He holds back. You can tell. There's times he angled it, but he took his hand and disarmed him, but didn't finish him. He tries to get his son to join him. And when you add everything you learn in Return of the Jedi into Empire Strikes Back, the weight of everything just makes Empire Strike Back that much better. And so, all Absolutely. You who love Empire, the reason why you love it, and you'll never admit it, is because of Return of the Jedi.
I love them both. Yes. Both. I just love the grittiness. Of Empire just a little bit more. And I think it just immediately goes for me. I'm always just about, I love you. I know. And that
yes.
I'm a hopeless romantic, and that just gets me every single time. And I just love in Return of the Jedi when she takes her helmet off and she's like, someone that loves you. And I'm just like,
Yep.
But yes,
yeah,
they build off of each other. And yes, there is that beautiful redemption. I don't feel like so many Star Wars properties now know how to do that anymore.
Yeah. But this is why when I saw the very first Harry Potter movie and I wasn't familiar with it, I got a free pass to go see. I call it the Philosopher's Stone, but it's the Sorcerer's Stone. I know, but it's supposed to be the Philosopher's Stone for anyone who knows like folklore of that. But anyways, when I was first introduced to these three characters, being a Star Wars fan, I clearly saw Luke, Han, and Leia, and I was like, oh yeah, Ron and Hermione. I was sold on Ron and Hermione from the get-go. I was like, yeah, she's kind of the uppity type, strong, smart, intelligent Princess Leia. Ron is the scoundrel.
Do they get together or something? I've never finished the books or anything.
I will not spoil it for you then.
I'm not going to go back. You can spoil it for me. I don't care.
Okay, but yeah, although I think I like the way it plays out a little bit better in the books than the movie did it, because in the movies they left out this entire thing where Hermione was trying to free the house elves and stuff. And I forgot what was that? SPEW. Yeah, the Society for the Protection of Elvis Welfare or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they left it completely out of the movies. But that's in the books. It's when he finally says, like, when Hogwarts is under siege, you're like, wait a minute, we better get to the house elves. And Harry says, yeah, I bet we can get them to fight for us. And Ron says, we can't ask them to do that. We have to warn them to get out of here. And Hermione just goes and finally, it's like Ron gets it and just grabs him. And they're just locked faces. And Harry's sitting there like, well, I knew this was coming eventually. Okay. Hello. Hey, Voldemort's outside. Hello. You know, so it's funny in the book and in the movie. And it was nice in the movie where they finally had the moment, but the movies, unfortunately, I think devalued Ron and they forgot that, no, this is a Han Solo character. He's not just comic relief. He's Han Solo. And the books kept that. You could see he's Han Solo. The movies dropped that somewhere around the 5th movie, where Ron kind of gets pushed aside because they realize, oh, look, Hermione's growing up to be kind of a pretty girl now. We'll do all the Hermione stuff. We'll kind of forget Ron's there. It's like, look, all three of them are important. You need to keep, yeah. But you really ought to at least go watch the movies there, Francisco. I bet you didn't like the movies though, did you?
No, I did like, there's a whole backstory to why I stopped watching the movies. Okay. I'm not going to get into it here.
Okay.
I may one day, but it's like there's so much else to watch.
There
like Cobra Kai season 3, part 3. I mean, season 6, part 3.
Hang in there until February. That can be your Valentine's Day.
Oh yes. There were the season that released actually on New Year's Eve a few years back. I think it was season 5. Philip and I just sat there. That was how we waited for midnight. We just watched the entire season.
That's awesome.
Day well spent.
Yes, it was. The night well spent. And then, of course, we finished just in time for me to get on Animal Crossing to celebrate the new year with all my little animal friends on the Switch. So, yes, I'm still a gamer. I love my games. So,
wait, but you game? Next thing you're going to tell me you play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah, like multiple times, and I still can't platinum the thing. I'm lacking the skills. These kids these days are amazing what they can do, but I've have to accept my age. I don't have the reflexes that I have, so I love playing for experiencing the story because, of course, when we grew up from the Atari, the Nintendo, if you read the instruction booklet, you get what the story is, but then you're just playing and you don't really have any much story going on. And when we get over the place, well, even Super Nintendo, when you start getting like in Final Fantasy games where you'd have story, it was amazing. And speaking of, I wanted to tie back to this. Speaking of games, because we're still talking Star Wars, and we've already gone over an hour. How about that? One of the biggest, coolest events, other than, of course, Heir to the Empire coming out, was Shadows of the Empire, who came out a soundtrack, a comic book, a novel, which I bought and never read, a video game, but I didn't have a Nintendo 64. So a friend of mine had it and we played it and it was incredibly difficult. And I still, even when I later got an N64 myself, I could not get very far in that game. It was really hard, but it was so cool. And it had new Star Wars music, even if it wasn't John Williams. The media event that was Shadows of the Empire, new toys were coming out for it. And that was just an event. And I'll let you all comment on what that was like for y'all.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I remember we got Shadows of the Empire for the N64, and it was so cool. I mean, the opening stage, playing Hoth. We had me and my brothers, we had Super Star Wars and Super Empire. Well, good for you. I do not like it in my old age. And we had Super Empire Strikes Back also. Mm-hmm. And you played Hoth in that. It was fine, but playing it like 3D rendered and stuff. Yeah. Shadows of the Empire was really cool. I really felt like I was in the movie. And I felt a little disappointed that then I wasn't playing as Han Solo or Luke. I'm like, who's this other guy? And then the rest of the game, especially for the third person perspective, was just, a little too tedious in terms of its difficulty. It's just, I forget. I don't think it was tank controls necessarily, but it wasn't easiest. And there's a lot of stuff that just made it a challenging game. But that opening level, or all the ones where you're in the Corellian ship, are great.
Well, if we could get a good remaster sort of remake of that game, sort of like what they've done with Pod Racer, put a new coat of paint, fix the controls, and modernize the controls on that, I bet I could beat it then. But it's really hard to control it on the N64. You know, it's sort of like on the Switch, you can play GoldenEye, but unless you have the right controller, it's really difficult on a Switch controller to play GoldenEye. So it's really, stuff was really designed for a very specific controller, and it's hard to work with, but nice, comfortable PlayStation controller would be great. So, hey, there's what is the name of that company? Aspire, who's getting the rights to the old Star Wars games. They've been re-releasing Knights of the Old Republic, doing a very nice job of it. I'm hoping at some point they're going to re-release Shadows of the Empire and fix the controls and make it a little easier to get through, because I'd love to still play it and experience what the story was, and maybe even voice it instead of just reading the captions. That would be fantastic. So I kind of hope that is somewhere in the back of somebody's head that they're going to do that, because I would be all about it, because I love playing the old Star Wars games. I have not yet picked up where they remastered Dark Forces, but I did play the original Dark Forces. I used to play that all the time on PlayStation. Love that game. I didn't really get to play too many of the sequels, although I think I own them on Steam. I just don't play a lot on my PC. I play mainly on a console, where they did where your main character in that became a Jedi. And they did a lot of people, I think, forget Dark Forces exists because you suddenly have Jedi Academy games and it's like, no, we're still playing as the same guy from Dark Forces. It's just now he's a Jedi master, and
Yeah, I never got that. I never got far enough in Dark Forces to realize. I think I knew that sort of in the zeitgeist, but were you ever familiar with? Did you play Dark Forces, Ashley? I know you played several Star Wars.
Yeah, none of these games I have any context for. I've heard of Shadows of the Empire. Sadly, we never had it. The only Star Wars games we ever had, we did have all three of the Super Star Wars games on the Super Nintendo. Jedi was my favorite.
Yeah, that was fun.
I loved this stupid cruiser that you piloted on the way to Jabba's palace. I loved that level. We had Rogue Squadron and we had Pod Racer for the N64. And I spent more time playing Pod Racer than Rogue Squadron. I know that my brother spent so much time going through all the stages in Rogue Squadron, and he eventually got, I don't know if it was a cheat or if you unlocked it to finally get the Millennium Falcon in the game, but I just loved that was in there. And I loved the Easter egg in that game that they had that cruiser that Anakin piloted in Phantom Menace. I thought that was such a cool Easter egg in Rogue Squadron that was there. And the only other Star Wars game that I remember playing was, I want to say, was it a Nintendo DS, The Force Unleashed? How you were like this, basically like recruited by Darth Vader, and you were kind of his like extension. You were his protege. Yeah. That was really cool. But eventually, like, they make a sequel, and he turns his back on Darth Vader, and he like he has a redemption arc too. I never played all the way through, but that would have been really cool. And I look through my Steam collection. I'm like, I have Jedi Academy. I have Fallen Order that came out recently. I have all these Star Wars games. Why aren't I playing them?
Because you're reading books.
I haven't read any Star Wars books since they were declared legends. And it makes me a little sad. I've read one single book in the new canon, and it was just a prelude to the Star Wars Rebel series that came out that Disney Channel did a couple of years ago. And it was just kind of meh.
Yeah. The Rebel series was actually pretty good, though. I did like that.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But the book that led into it was just kind of
not good.
Meh. No. It's called Rebel Dawn. It was just kind of meh.
Yeah, but speaking of Sam Witwer, the Force Unleashed, Sam Witwer, who I was talking about earlier, who had said all the stuff about Return of the Jedi, he's the guy who motion captured and is modeled for your protagonist there in the Force Unleashed games, by the way. Big Star Wars fan. That guy's awesome. Yeah, I think he's voiced some stuff in Clone Wars as well. You'd have to look him up. Really cool guy. But anyways, go ahead, Francisco.
I was just going to ask if either of you had ever played the Star Wars, I think it's Star Wars Galaxies, the massively multiplayer game that was out several years ago, but then it got nixed.
Yeah, it got killed.
Nope.
I didn't play that one, but I've played a little bit of the Old Republic. I've got a Sith character created in there. I haven't played in a while because I need to find more people that I can get together and play with, because an online game is fun, but it's only fun when you have your friends to play with. And that's even like the old City of Heroes game. I had people that I met in there and I got part of a big Justice League kind of grouping. And then like our head guy, there was something that happened. And next thing you know, they disbanded us. And I couldn't find anybody that I was having fun playing with anymore. And it just, by myself, it wasn't fun anymore. And so a lot of games, it's more fun when you have other people. But the way the modern world is, trying to interact with a lot of online people that you're not that familiar with on the game. You never know what you're going to get. And so I do play a little bit of Final Fantasy 14, which is an online, but I kind of just do stuff by myself. But with any game, I'd have more fun if I have more people that I know that I play with. And for a little while with the Old Republic, there were some people that I know from like another podcast that it was them and his gaming group and everything. I'd kind of meet with them. We'd go play that and some other games. I need to find a good gaming group to play some D&D with, because I would like to play that, because it's completely changed since I was a kid. And I want to play in a good gaming group to play some D&D. And, Mary Howell of Nerds and Jesus, I think, is part of some sort of group. I need to like bug her. I'm like, can I play with you guys?
Yeah.
So it would be fun. So I need to find a good gaming group that I can meet with like on a regular time. And the thing is like everybody's like different time zones. Like, as you guys being on the West Coast, for you, like a 7:00 thing, it's 9:00, and it's the older I get, the more like 8:00 is I'm crashing. So,
yeah, totally get that.
I understand. Oh my goodness. It's kind of funny, the weird camera thing's going on. Ashley's like trying to fix something, so like she just disappears. And then we're up close.
So many issues.
Yeah, having issues trying to get it to work because all the flickering and stuff.
Yeah,
we're trying to get good quality for you, Jeremy, but we just it just may not work.
Cameras and they're just like.
Yeah, and you forgot to unmute yourself, so we're hearing you through Francisco's mic.
Even better.
There you are. Okay.
Yeah, everything's just flickery and angry and.
Yeah.
I apologize.
That's all right. I haven't had a seizure yet. Okay, I don't have this, but I'm glad Philip's not here because he's had 7 brain surgeries, and that probably would have bugged him after a while. But I'm fine. I'm twitchy without that. So okay,
we're fine here. How are you?
Exactly.
We're in conversation anyway.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I think we've covered most of what the expanded things, all of what I call the pre-Disney Star Wars. And I remember being super excited with the sale of it and finding out they were going to be making new movies. And then we don't have to get into it really, but I remember going through to see The Force Unleashed or The Force Awakens and saying, this feels like a fan film and not a real Star Wars movie. Something's wrong. And I tried, I was still doing a Disney show. I tried to justify some stuff on those movies. I even bought a book and I couldn't. I was like, the Last Jedi book. I bought it. I was like, no, I bet some details are missing, but I watched it once, was okay. Took my wife to watch it the second time, thought it was okay. By the third time I watched it, I was like, there's some serious problems with this. And now I hate that movie, even though I own a copy. So I'm one of them people. I used to say there was only 3 Star Wars movies, but you know what? The Disney movies made those prequels fantastic. So there are 6 Star Wars movies, but there are also some bonuses because Rogue One was amazing. I still even like the Han Solo movie. Mandalorian until that last season was pretty good. I even like the Boba Fett series. Andor was pretty good. It's a slow burn, but once it gets going, Andor was good. There still has been some good stuff. But really, we don't count any of those sequel trilogies. They don't exist. Sort of like there's only 3 Indiana Jones movies. We don't count those.
Exactly. Only 3.
Exactly. 3. But that's because I'm old school. I'm a grumpy old man, and I'm allowed to be that way. If y'all enjoy the other stuff, you go and enjoy it. I'm not going to stop you from enjoying it, but
I will stop you from enjoying it because why would you do that to yourself? Come on now, you're smart. You're listening to the Fandom Nexus. You're obviously a smart cookie. Don't subject yourself to mediocrity. Go for the best.
Yes.
Around, nothing's ever gonna get you down.
Well, I'm going to start doing the Trump dance if I ain't careful.
I was going for Karate Kid, but sure, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Karate Kid dance. Now, this is more the evil Spider-Man, which I'm allowed to do the evil Spider-Man dance.
Oh, yes.
We actually have a fan film. You can find it slightly edited on YouTube because I had to change some music around. But we did a fan film called Supers that I broke into episodes onto YouTube. And at one point, we're mocking Spider-Man 3, and because I'm playing Spider-Man and I'm doing the thing. But we actually did a parody of the Civil War when it was happening in comics before Marvel actually made a movie about it. So We had an aftermath of what happens post Civil War 1. What if the entire thing had also happened in the DC universe? So I'm Spider-Man and Philip is actually in there playing Superman. And it's what happens a few years after that we've been forced to retire and we've gotten a little out of weight, but now something has happened and we're making a comeback. And it ends up being like a little bit Clerks. And I tried to go as low budget looking. So our Superman, our uniforms are basically like t-shirts. And I have I have a stocking mask I put on. Because I was going for as poor budget as possible, because unless you have a really big budget, you shouldn't try to be making a serious fan film. But if you're doing parody like we kind of were, it works with the bad costuming and a little bit of improv. Basically, we did a lot of improv. We didn't write a script. We said, here's what happens in this scene. Start rolling. So me as the editor, I had to go through and try to figure out, okay, this is funny. This was stupid. This is funny. And so, yeah, so we actually have a fan film. Now, what was it that triggered me to remember that? Yeah, there was something else said that I was like, that reminds me of this movie we did. And it's on YouTube. It's on my personal YouTube if you go search for Spider-Man it might be the Spider-Man on YouTube.
Oh, I think the Spider-Man 3 dance. That's what triggered you.
Yes, there we go, because I literally did that thing. And I was like, hey, dig on this.
That movie on fire and let it out of its misery.
You know, the director's cut of Spider-Man 3 actually is a little better.
I haven't seen that. I didn't know there was a director's cut.
Yeah, when I bought the Blu-ray trilogy set and got the digital copies, because it also includes the Spider-Man 2.1, I guess they call it, where it has some extra scenes in there, which is totally worth it, because you see Jonah, after he buys the Spidey suit, is wearing it and hops up on his desk and whipping around. So you get to see what Jonah's really like. Oh, the 2.1 is great for the bonus scenes and the extended subway sequences on there as well. But Spider-Man 3, there's I don't know what it is, but there's something different about that other cut that actually made it, I feel like, a little better. But Spider-Man 3 probably would have been better if we hadn't tried to make the Sandman the guy who killed Uncle Ben. But I think the problem is that Sam Raimi does not really like the whole Venom thing, but everybody was pressuring him to do something with Venom. And instead of going to the writers who did the first two movies, he found some different people to write it. And they came up with their own version to be able to get Venom. And I understand you need to have Peter to have a dark side come out, but that was probably not the best way to do it. Mm-hmm. And I remember even because I bought the novelizations of all three because I'm a Spider-Man fan. And I was reading the book before the movie came out, and I was like, I should probably stop reading this. I'm spoiling it. But I was like, something doesn't feel right. I just don't get it. Something's just not sitting. And I was like, ooh, and I finished the entire book before I saw the movie. I was like, I don't know. I was like, I'm going to go see the movie. The movie's going to be better. And I was like, there's stuff I like about this. The epic showdown at the end is pretty epic, but it just, it didn't work. And then when I saw that disco dance, I was like, what in the holy snot are you doing?
Yeah.
It would have been better. It would have been better off if the suit had just found him and started making him more angry. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to have him have a reason that the suit was attracted to him. You could have just had the suit find him and just latch on and just happened to have been him. And it could have happened to anybody, but it just happened to have been him. That would have been okay. You know,
yeah.
It didn't have to be drawn to his anger. It could have just, it puts its own mind into, because it's a symbiote. It's got its own will, as we've, gotten to see in those Venom films. And so I like the way that they've made Venom as almost a separate entity and talking to Eddie, because like, yes, that's Venom. We could have really done that with Spider-Man 3, and we could have gone to a Spider-Man 4 where Eddie Brock will get the symbiote maybe at the end of the movie. Because there was talks that Spider-Man 4 was already on the roll. We were going to get Vulture played by
Michael Keaton?
No, not Michael Keaton. We were going to have the one actor. He's another bald guy, and he's such a great character actor.
Francisco Ruiz.
And they
You're not fully bald, husband. You don't count.
He's a great actor. They even made a movie.
Stewart?
They made a movie about actually being inside his head, where he's basically playing himself, but other people are supposed to be controlling his brain.
Yes. Inside John
Malkovich. John Malkovich. Yes.
That's
John Malkovich was signed on to play the Vulture, but because Spider-Man 3 went so bad, they canceled Spider-Man 4. But it would have been great. Malkovich as the Vulture would have been. I mean, I love Michael Keaton, but I hated what they did with the Vulture character in that movie. They completely wrecked Spider-Man in that movie. I did not like Homecoming. Now, the other two that they've done recently, I did enjoy, but all the stuff I was excited about Disney buying between Lucasfilm and Marvel, starts out okay, but somehow or another just. And I no longer find myself when I see a new Marvel thing coming, I don't get excited anymore. It's like I used to get super excited about these, but I don't anymore, and I should be. Now, although granted, I have enjoyed like those latter two Spider-Man movies I've liked. It's just Homecoming I didn't like, and I think it's because they took a character, Michelle, who has popped up in the later years with Spider-Man as someone he was kind of roomed with, and she was kind of an antagonist and just pretty much the same nasty personality that Michelle had. And but having, I don't know, turning her into MJ was the final straw. I was like, I'm sorry, no, you don't do that. If anything, if you want to have somebody different besides Mary Jane, you bring in Gwen Stacy, like Amazing Spider-Man movies did, which I actually enjoyed both of those.
Or Black Cat. Come on.
Yes, Felicia. Can we not have Felicia and the Black Cat? That would be awesome. I know she's a Catwoman ripoff, but I love Felicia. She's such a cool character. So yes, there's so much that could have been done that hasn't been done, but I'm trying to hold out hope because I like the new design on the Spidey suit that they showed briefly at the end of that third Spider-Man movie they did. So I'm like, okay, let me see what you do. Tom Holland is not bad as being a Spider-Man, but he's not my favorite. But he's pretty good, and I love his passion for the character. So he hasn't been terrible, and I even kind of liked him as Nathan Drake a little bit. The Uncharted movie wasn't horrible.
It would have been better if it was Nathan Fillion as Nathan Drake.
Heck yes, brother.
You and your favorite Nathan.
I cannot disagree with you. You're totally right.
Romance alone.
It'd have been fantastic. And I would love to have seen Nathan Fillion play Green Lantern.
Here.
But we got a good animated one. We did. That animated Green Lantern with him on there. It's great. It really is. So, but anyways, yes. Anything else? Because I can rant on about a lot of different things. I babble. That's why I podcast.
I guess I had a sort of a silly question that sort of merges both our sort of conversations together. Is there a superhero that you guys feel like it's kind of like they're just using the Force? Like, do you feel like there's any superhero at Marvel or DC where it's like, yeah, you're just using the Force now? Like, you could just be in Star Wars.
Jean Grey. The telekinesis.
Yeah, absolutely.
With a little bit of telepathy in there. One of my favorite of the X-Men, although she belongs with Cyclops, never Wolverine.
Wolverine. I hate Wolverine and Jean Grey. It's just like, no, Logan, find your own woman.
And he does all over the place. The ugliest guy you've ever seen, and he's womanizing like he's James Bond all over the place. And we're supposed to buy in that he's totally in love with her. No, she's hot and he wants her. That's it.
And I love Hugh Jackman, but he's not my Wolverine. I love Hugh Jackman. I've loved him as Wolverine, but I love comic book Wolverine. I love the 5'3" yellow, electric blue bub kind of Wolverine, like X-Men 90s animated series, like just that Wolverine all day long. Let him find his own love. And he stay the heck away from Jean Grey. Just stay away.
That's the stories that they could really make into stuff is when he goes to Japan and he has the I forgot her name now. The one girl that he's about to marry before she's murdered.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
That's the real love of Wolverine's life. And that would be a good story. And I thought we were going to kind of get that in that one Wolverine movie that they did where he's in Japan and we got
Origins, maybe
not Origins. I think it was just called Wolverine. Oh, okay. And they did a really bad version of the Silver Samurai in that one. So, yeah, I'm hoping with some newer X-Men stuff that maybe the current Marvel will get something right. X-Men 97 is not bad. I still kind of liked it. There's some stuff I didn't like, but at least they're getting back to the era, but they're kind of not doing a very good job of the era of X-Men that were my favorite back in the 90s with the animated series. I mean, what a time to be alive in the 90s. If I'd have been a kid, it'd have been great too. But even as a teenager, with the Spider-Man and the X-Men, and we had Batman, the animated series. We had a great Superman series. I was living the high life. Oh, yes. I mean, so something like that. We waited for a lifetime to finally get a good X-Men series. I mean, we had Pride of the X-Men. I kind of like it because it's corny. It's fun. But getting an actual X-Men series, that's something when Philip and I were kids. It was Halloween when that premiered, and he was over at my house. We were going to go hang out on Halloween, and we were waiting for that X-Men premiere, and we were just sucked up into it. It was so great. And then when that Spider-Man series finally came later, I was riding the high hog. I loved it. So far, good. But most of the Spider-Man cartoons I have enjoyed. Some of the ones that Disney did, however, not quite so much. But Spectacular Spider-Man was fantastic. I've gotten to speak with one of the writers, creators on behind that. Love Spectacular Spider-Man. That was really good. But that original 90s animated series, oh, heaven, I'm in heaven. So, yeah.
I'm curious. Here's my last question for you guys. Since I haven't read any of the books, if you're to recommend any of talking about the Star Wars expanded universe books, if someone's like a fan like we are of the original trilogy, maybe the prequel trilogy also, what book would you say they should start with, each of you? Like, should they start with the Thrawn trilogy? Should they start with something else? Like, what would your guys' suggestions be for that?
Start with Thrawn. You can't really go wrong because honestly, the characters are well developed. He's such a formidable foe in that universe. And I mean, out of all of the EU that has the most recognition, that particular trilogy, Heir to the Empire, the other books that come after it, just because it creates such world building. And it was one of the very, very first books ever written. And Timothy Zahn, like, he's written countless novels in the EU under the Legends banner and the current iteration.
Yeah.
He still writes
to reinvent Thrawn a little bit.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And I don't love everything that Disney Star Wars has done, but making Thrawn actually part of their current iteration is phenomenal. And I hate it when people cherry pick, but if they were going to cherry pick anything, cherry picking Thrawn to have him show up in Rebels and have him show up in other. I haven't seen a lot of Disney Star Wars since that trilogy just ruined everything for me. But just seeing Thrawn in Rebels and seeing him on screen, I'm like, this is the best.
It's Thrawn.
Yeah, absolutely. I would read that Thrawn trilogy. Yeah. He wrote like a duo set of novels a little later on, bringing back like Thrawn. It was really his subordinates, and there was this fake Thrawn, and it's really strange, but it's not as good. But definitely that. If you really like Luke Skywalker, there's a trilogy where Luke is basically establishing his Jedi. It's called the Jedi Academy trilogy. And I want to say it's written by Kevin J. Anderson. That's a really good trilogy. But if you really like action, you really want like a new saga of Star Wars, and you want like a new Jedi Order, you want to kind of have the prequel trilogy where you've got the Jedi Order, but you've got it with this new set of characters. Oh my gosh. Absolutely read the new Jedi Order, because it went on for almost a decade. Dozens of authors. The first book was, what was it called? I can't even remember, but it was written by R.A. Salvatore. And it was so different because he is a fantasy novelist. I believe that's one of the only Star Wars novels he ever wrote, but he set off the trajectory, and he made choices in that book that were kept through decades to come. Choices that he made with characters.
Oh, cool.
Stayed in motion for almost 2 decades until Disney bought Star Wars. And there's just so much action, so many beautiful character developments, and you really get to see Han and Leia's children grow up and become part of the new Jedi Order and everything. And it's just so fun. And you get to see like Luke build his romance, and eventually you see him have a kid who actually has an appropriate name. I'm sorry, Ben Solo, you are no. If anyone is going to name their kid Ben, it needs to be Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, right.
Because he had such a different relationship with Ben Kenobi. I'm sorry. Force feeding young Leia in the Kenobi series and trying to like retcon that to say, oh, we named her kid Ben. We need to have a connection somehow.
Yeah.
But she knew him as Obi-Wan. How did she know Ben Kenobi? She knew Obi-Wan Kenobi as a child.
Right. Although her adoptive father probably told her some stories because he knew Obi-Wan. So
I get that, but it's not the same relationship that Luke had with Ben. Ben watched over Luke from afar. Yeah. He gave up his life after the Republic fell, watched that kid from a distance, and then was one of his first Force trainers. Like, honestly, that legacy I can respect. I still can't get on board with Han and Leia naming their only child Ben. It's like the dumbest thing ever. I'm sorry. I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, should have named him Wicket. Come on.
Yeah. all that
of
stuff.
any Star Wars book that I've gone through that I would recommend would probably just because it's different. Darth Maul Shadow Hunter, and that's the one I have on a cassette because it's nice getting into the seedy kind of criminal section of Coruscant while mixing in some of the mainline stuff because Darth Maul is in there using the Force and being evil and getting more character establishment than he got in the Phantom Menace. Because I remember the Phantom Menace, the disappointing part was that we were getting this toy and this really cool looking character who doesn't show up until the end, and then they, spoiler alert, killed him. Although they came up with a weird, stupid, and ridiculous way to bring him back, which I was like, okay, I'm just going to go with it.
They brought him back not once, but twice.
That's weird.
And they bring him back in Rebels, and I'm like,
yeah. Well, but he didn't get killed off from because he came back in Clone Wars, but he didn't get killed again, did he? So
no,
he's still there, but he got different set of legs.
He gets killed in Rebels. But it's just like, really?
I like actually the way he dies in Rebels, though. With having that last exchange with Obi-Wan, where he's avenge us because he was wronged by the Sith too. You know, he was taken as a small boy and forced into this and didn't get to really be himself. And just that moment where he's fallen in Obi-Wan and he just looks at Obi-Wan and says, avenge us. Oh, that gets me. But Shadowhunter is a good story.
Take place in the timeline. I thought it was after Return of the Jedi. Is it before that?
Rebels is, I believe, before A New Hope.
Oh, okay.
It leads right up into a New Hope, and it's kind of set like in the mid years of the Empire. Oh, it is so good. It's one of the few Disney Star Wars things that I'm just like.
Although I don't think Rebels was started by Disney, was it?
Of course it wasn't.
It was the same people who were doing the Clone Wars, but it might have been because it was Disney XDs where they had it. But they were smart and went back to the people who had been making the Clone Wars series and say, hey, can you make us one that takes place in this era? And they ended up making a good series and some good characters that we liked. And the cool thing about the Clone Wars series is we even got a character we didn't think we were going to like, but by the end, we all loved Ahsoka. When we first meet her in that movie, she's like, wow, she's annoying. This is Anakin's apprentice. But then by the end, I liked the growth that Ahsoka had. We all loved her by the end. So they actually made a pretty good character. I don't know that they've done anything really that I appreciated with her since necessarily, but her popping up in Rebels was cool. But I could not get into that live action once. People would tell, oh no, you'll actually like it. It's like, I watched the first episode and I didn't like it, unfortunately.
I made it like maybe a handful of minutes into the first episode and I turned it off. Yeah. It was hard to stomach her when she showed up on The Mandalorian. It was hard enough. I'm just like, I don't need live action a little bit. I don't feel like I need it. Yeah. And honestly, like I only made it through like the first, I want to say I watched the first 2, maybe part of the 3rd season of The Mandalorian. Like it started off like feeling so cool. Yeah. And then it's just like,
I don't have him over on my desk anymore. I was about to say I have my little Grogu, and my Grogu's over there, way over there on the outside of the room. I got a little Grogu thing that you can feed him and he talks and everything because we all loved Grogu. The problem with The Mandalorian is they realized we loved Grogu and they started pushing him more into the show, making it about him more than it was about the adventures of a bounty hunter guy. So
its first few seasons, so good.
Yeah, so good when it starts. But then, the only Grogu thing they did that it really bugged me is when he's eating that one woman they're trying to transport, eating her kids because they're kind of frog-like.
Oh, and I was like, the little frog.
This isn't just some mindless animal. This is another species that's almost extinct. This is supposed to have been funny. No, that's when I started thinking.
Every single time, it's like stop. There's someone's baby. Stop.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, somehow or another, this is about to go downhill. Although the second season was still pretty good. And the Boba Fett series was pretty much Mandalorian season 3. I still kind of liked it. But by the time we got the real season 3 of Boba Fett, it's like something fell off the wagon here. And so we'll see what happens when that movie comes out. I'll go see it. But I'm a little nervous because like, okay, you guys need to course correct a little bit. But we'll see because it has potential to be amazing. It does. It has potential. So I
won't hold my breath.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath, but I don't know. That's the thing. They make this stuff and I don't get excited, but I want to like it because I still, I was actually another podcast I listened to that from like PlayStation Access people, but it's called Red Shirt Cinema. And they've went through and they watched all the Star Trek shows and they're watching other stuff, but they describe, because not every Star Trek movie is good. And they describe fandom as something where even when they make something bad, you really wanted to like it, but you're also still passionate about how you didn't like it because of what went wrong with it. but that doesn't mean you're not a fan of that anymore. It just means you just didn't like, you don't have to like absolutely everything they make of a certain series to be still a fan of it. So I am still a Marvel fan, even though they're kind of jumped the shark a little bit. Still a Star Wars fan, even though that really jumped the shark as far as movies goes. And I still love Mickey Mouse, despite that company doing stuff that I'm like, what are you guys doing? And even this week when they announced, and here's another news piece I thought about getting into, is, and even though I think this is a great idea, because they needed to remove Aerosmith from the Rock and Roller Coaster, they're putting the Muppet Mayhem in there. Heck yes, brother. I love that. But unfortunately, at the same time, the Muppets 3D is going to go away. And that's the last thing Jim Henson ever did. There's legacy.
That was such an experience.
And I love it. And I kind of like that Monsters Incorporated is going in there. But I think what it is, I think it's going to be another laugh floor, I guess, which is cool. I remember that in Walt Disney World, loving the laugh floor. And I think that's what they're doing. But it's like, it's such a sad thing. But the dumb things that they've done is, if you want to make something for Princess and the Frog, and I've said this on my show before, but y'all haven't heard me rant on this yet. What they should have done, instead of destroying Splash Mountain that everybody loved, because they're afraid that some people might have thought it was racist, they should have built a restaurant. Because what was Tiana all about? Tiana's Palace, a Cajun-themed restaurant. You could have built a restaurant based on that movie, and you could have had Lewis, an animatronic Lewis, playing trumpet with a real band playing Cajun-style jazz and having like Cajun food and everything. It'd have been amazing. But no, they tore down a very popular ride to make something that didn't quite work. And I know the cult of Disney still is trying to like it, but the regular Disney people like me looked at it and watched video of it like,
yeah,
it's not doing it for me.
It's missing something. It's trying, but it never quite gets the landing. Yeah. It tries, and you got to be like, you're getting so close, Disney, but it always is falling short because you're missing out on the original magic that was there.
Yeah.
And you can try to retool things and try to make it, quote unquote, more appropriate for the times and connect it to a more modern entity. But I feel like we really lost the beauty and majesty that the original had. Yeah. Just watching. The animatronics looked great. Like, don't get me wrong. Those animatronics look great, but I watched someone do an on-ride recording. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know that I would ever go on that. It's kind of missing something for me.
A mountain in the swamp is weird enough. There shouldn't be. It's the swamp. It's flat. It's water. How am I supposed to believe that I'm in a swamp? So really, if you want to build something Princess the Frog, and there's still a chance, y'all could still build a restaurant. And I would be excited for it because, like, that's cool. That would be me going and living inside the movie. So like they have a Beauty and the Beast themed restaurant that I'll never be able to afford to eat because I'm suddenly I want to step into the movie. That's when my one trip at Walt Disney World, and what made me a big Disney fan more than I was before, is every ride I felt like I was stepping into an adventure. And that's what they do best. And they need to not lose it just because we don't want to offend anybody. Don't worry about offending. Put people into the movies they love.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, not enough people probably loving some of their newer movies. So maybe stick to some of the classics and not remake
what
them.
I want to do someday is make it over to like Tokyo Disney. They have this Beauty and the Beast ride. Those animatronics are beautiful. It is so world building. I got chills when I watched someone have a recording of that ride, and it looked so beautiful because Beauty and the Beast is my favorite Disney animated movie.
All right, high five.
Pretty much any iteration of any kind. Like, let me go get my bell. I love Belle. She is my favorite. I've got little figurines.
Your chair looks almost like the same chair in my office. That's fun. Anyway, that's cute.
She is my favorite. I've got lots of little Belle figures. She's always been my favorite, but I love that movie. And I got chills watching this. I'm like, why can't we get anything like that here in the States? We're just getting crap.
Yeah.
Because they're pandering, and it's like, and the thing is, like, they're just losing sight of what made it magical in the first place. I haven't been to any Disney park since 2015. I grew up on the East Coast. We would actually drive from New York State down to Florida because pretty much 3/4 of my mom's side of the family lives down there. And we would go like every 2 years going down to Disney. And there was just something magical because there was something for everybody. And now it's just like, they make everything too modern. And it's just like, you have to know where you're going in the future by honoring your past. You can't just be focusing on the present. You have to somehow find balance into honoring your history while moving towards the future. And I don't feel like Disney parks have been doing a lot of that as of late. They're just missing the mark.
They're pooping on their past right now.
Exactly. And I mean, you know what?
The remakes are like the apology tour.
Yeah.
It's like, this wasn't. Oh no, some people might find this offensive because it doesn't have modern sensibilities of what we think of stuff. It's like, they weren't trying to be racist at the time. Walt Disney was a big advocate. So it's like, I'm going to try to get the first black man to get an Oscar. You know, and they just don't get it. And because, these people have this different color. They looked funny. Yeah, well, so did Elmer Fudd. So did Captain Hook and Shmi were white people who looked funny because they're cartoons. But you can only make white people look funny. Oh no, if there's something else, they better not make it funny. It's like, you know what? If those particular people aren't being offended, then maybe we should just say, hey, this is just fun. But okay, I didn't try to make this be a rant about how Disney, as I tell people, I didn't leave Disney. Disney left me because they have forgotten what they have written on that plaque when you walk into a Disney park about their past. And they're looking towards the future. And I can't quote it because I forgot it, even though I've got a little sign that goes down into my master bedroom. But yeah.
Disney may have left you guys. I left Disney.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, because I understand. But
Can I ask you a question, Francisco?
I still have this on my desk.
What did Disney do that made you leave them?
Yeah. Who hurt you, Francisco? Who hurt you?
Just pinpoint exactly the moment where you're like, I'm not here anymore. What movie was it? Was it something in the Disney parks? Because I know you're like, I don't want to go to Walt Disney World. I don't want to go to Disneyland. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Blah, Disney. What was it? Can you pinpoint that moment in time?
It's like you're in my head.
Just like, I'm gone, Disney. Never again.
Oh my gosh. That's
I've always been curious because I don't know that you've ever told me. Like, we've been married just over 2 years. I'm like,
I'm going to look up like a list of Disney movies and see if I can pinpoint the time, because it's hard for me to know. Like I imagine I don't think it was a movie specifically. I think it was sort of
a period of time.
It was there's a phrase that people say, slowly then all at once or something like that.
That's what they say about sleep and love. It's like falling asleep. It's slowly and then all at once, just like love.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it probably started with, I think even though I never saw Princess and the Frog, it really looked that interesting to me. But I think their decision to leave traditionally animated movies, and then they felt like they're a lot more agenda driven than I think actually the thing that really just sort of like was the divine line for me was when they're like remaking their
the live action
remakes.
Yeah.
Like stop cash grabbing. Just make new animated movies, or go, if you want to do something like this, go back to your Robin Hoods, your Lady and the Tramps, and redo it, like do an HD remake of this in but still traditionally animated. Yeah. Do something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they think they have to do everything. Why they have to make live action versions when
because
the Lion King of Mufasa, you're still mostly CG. So who are you kidding right now? I mean,
they have no expression. You're just like, oh, that's cool. I'm glad your voice told me what you were feeling. Yeah. Your face certainly did it.
The Mufasa movie, I will give it credit that they did put more effort into facial expression. You can see that in the trailers. I'm like, I'll grant you that, but I didn't need a story how Scar was an actual heir to the throne, and they weren't really brothers.
Yeah,
they were best friends, and they adopted Mufasa. And don't retcon and change with the story, because for some reason, one thing that I hate and why I'm definitely not seeing Wicked, I hate it when the villains become the good guys and the good guys are so bad. That's why. That's what I think when Disney started to really lose me was with Maleficent.
Ugh.
I hate it. I was so angry.
Don't want to see it. Sleeping Beauty is one of my favorite Disney animated. It's in my
beautiful,
top tier
that movie.
3.
Yeah,
love it. And I don't. There's just something about it, and I love that Kingdom Hearts takes Maleficent and makes her such a huge villain in the first game, and I love that. But yes, when you try to make people sympathetic, it's just like,
right.
You were a petty villain. You didn't get invited to a christening. Everybody but you got invited. You want to kill her. It's cool. Yeah. Let her be.
Because she was kind of a wicked, evil fairy. And I'm okay with people who are just, some people just want to watch the world burn.
Exactly.
I'm okay with that.
Let her be that.
Yes.
Keep her that way. We don't need an Angelina Jolie, sympathetic villain. Yeah. Oh, but I was wronged, and this is why.
Yeah.
I'm just misunderstood.
Well, it boils down to a bad one-night stand. I kid you not. I kid you not. That is pretty much what they did. It's like the writer had a bad one-night stand and said, I'm going to apply this to Maleficent, and this is going to be her whole issue.
Oh, I thought you were saying Maleficent in the movie had a bad one-night stand, and that's what caused her.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind then.
Because men are evil, and they took her wings.
I'm sorry. I'm not evil. You're evil.
Feminist agenda.
Oh, it was huge. And it's not so much because really some people have pointed out, well, every movie has some sort of a message to it. It's just whether you present it as story or whether you're preaching it at me. And this is where it makes me nervous for the upcoming Captain America, because although I love Sam Wilson and stuff, and I think his awesome costume for Captain America, I'm kind of eager for that. But when we get a series and he's just telling everybody, do better. And we have to have a 5-10 minute speech of him complaining, telling all these people how they're wrong, and they just need to do better. I was like, you've just lost me. I don't want my movies to preach at me. I go to church. I get preached at, and I take stuff to heart there. I read my Bible. I get preached at through that. I go to movies for escapism and entertainment, and and going back to best Christmas pageant ever, there's a message in there. There's something there to teach you, but they teach you by telling you a good story that we can all relate to. And it has made me stop and think, because my wife was talking about a problem student she had. And I was like, I want to know why that student acts that way, because there might be stuff going on that you don't understand. And maybe somebody just could get through to just the right opportunity. Because that's one of the messages with the best Christmas pageant ever is like people who act up. You don't know why. Some people are really rotten, but sometimes people, they just don't know any better, and the situation they're dealing with will find you a way to reach that person. People can be horrible and they can change, and that's why I prefer a redemption story more than I do, well, this villain wasn't really evil. They were actually just like this. Like, no, let them be evil, and if you want to find a way to redeem them, I'll love it even more. I love a good redemption of a villain.
That's a great way of looking at it. I never thought about it in that aspect, but yeah, let Maleficent be this totally like you said, Ashley, like, you weren't invited to a Christian, I'm going to see the world burn, to go from something like that to I actually care about something and want to see something saved. That's an amazing story. So yeah,
I love it when bad people change to good. Or watching good people go bad can be a good story. The story of Anakin is still pretty good to see somebody slowly slip away into evil. But then, of course, what makes the story of Anakin good is we get the story of Darth Vader and the redemption. If I see somebody who's going to fall and go bad, I would love to see them come back in redemption to where there's not hope, because that's Christianity. That's the story of Christianity. All of us went really bad, and there's always hope. And there's people I follow on Instagram. There's former witches. I mean, people who are into the New Age movement who got in some severe evil. I even follow some people who are like former porn stars who found Christ and have completely turned their life around and changed. But everybody can fall into the most horrible and evil times, can be the most evil as they can. But their redemption is easy and right at hand. And it starts, I love the song, put one foot in front of the other, and Christmas is coming. And I'm like, this is the most subtle way. The Rankin Bass, sometimes the Christian message really sneaks in there. And that's one of the ones, like, that is the beginning of the gospel. They're turning from bad to good.
Hasn't seen that one.
You haven't?
No.
Oh,
he
you should watch it.
hasn't seen Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I will have to remedy that.
Yes.
Simply for the fact, I don't know, the Winter Warlock, he just kind of tugs on your heartstrings because he has a just beautiful, it's super abbreviated, but it is really sweet. Because I think you'd like it, husband.
It's one act of love can melt the iciest heart. Really can. And I love seeing that where someone who's evil and, there's a movie coming out. It looks a little too dramatic. Some Angel Suit is putting out where it's a true story about this boy and this teacher who this kid has had just bad example. He's homeless and he's just a bad kid. But one teacher took the time with him and found out what was going on. And the kid resists, help him. But, this teacher apparently didn't give up. But the movie looks like it's going to be too hard to watch. But I love what the story and what the message is like nobody is outside of God's reach. And so that's why I love a good redemption story. And if I have to watch somebody who's a good guy starts going down a bad path, to have that one friend who's still loves them and doesn't give up on them to say, hey, what's happening? What's going on with you? You're going, really bad dark side. Let's bring you back. And there's even a good Batman story in the animated series where we see a darker end of Batman. He's like, why am I doing this? And he gets in this great funk and depression, but his friends don't give up on him. and it's like that. That's one of the best episodes of the Batman animated series when he just has that depressing way because Commissioner Gordon gets shot. But yeah, we need to wrap this up. Actually, I think we've gone over 2 hours, but it's supposed to be a very special episode. We're wrapping up 11 seasons, but yeah, you can get me talking
on that 11 seasons, Jeremy. That is an awesome accomplishment.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. It's been a rebuilding couple of years. But I want to make sure everybody goes and listens to Retro Rewind. It is a fantastic show. I've had a lot of fun with it since I've discovered. I think I first ran across you probably in the Christian Podcasters Association. I think it's how I came across you the first time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And when I checked out your first episode I listened to was one of the ones where it's like a weird Star Trek parody.
The ship's logged.
Ship's logged. I was like, what is this?
Aye.
And but then I started listening where you would do the reviews on old retro movies. I was like, oh, that's where they're hitting it. That's where they're knocking it out the park. I was like, so that's what I mainly listen to. I was like, these are fun. And I haven't got to listen to a lot of your back ones because I'm trying to catch up on other stuff, but there's a lot of movies you've covered. And you even did an episode of Final Fantasy VII. I did go back and listen with the reformed gamer.
Yeah, Logan. Yeah, the reformed gamer. But yeah, Logan. Yeah.
I kind of was just as soon as I discovered they were already gone. It's like, doggone it. So,
right.
But, yep. So y'all just go and check out the show. And also, I forgot, did you have a website or anything for the game Junkyard Juggernauts?
Yeah, junkyardjuggernauts.com is the site for the board game. Right now, we'll go to the current site. I'm in the process of merging Retro Rewind, Junkyard Juggernauts, all this sort of all the creations that God's had me steward. I'm trying to put them in one site called Firejoy Studios. You can't go to firejoystudios.com. You'd have to go to firejoystudios.substack.com if you want to sign up and subscribe to it there. But for now, if you just go retrorewindpodcast.com or junkyardjuggernauts.com, those will take you where you need, and then they will eventually point to the right end site at some point. So
awesome. And if anybody wants to find Ashley, she's on Twitter, I think, or X. I shouldn't say Twitter.
Yeah, I am definitely on Twitter. Find me at Ashley Ruiz 1186. I like to tweet about faith and fandom. Every November, it's my favorite time of year. It's National Gratitude Month. So every day during the month of November, I am tweeting something that I am thankful for. I think it's just so beneficial to us to really be thankful for all that God's given us. Yeah. And I feel like having that attitude of gratitude, like it really helps us focus on what we have instead of what we don't. When the world is telling us this, you don't have this, you need to be chasing this and chasing this. So it's just a great way to help refocus my heart and just to be able to share that with others. So awesome. Yeah.
All right, and so then really quick for the rest of them, we want to remind you about Podgagement, and if you have a podcast, would like to get your reviews sent to your email, neverlandpodcast.com. Find links for that and W as well. If you need energy drinks that are not going to give you the jitters, drink powders of all kinds of different flavors, mix it with water. Find that at w.gg, and you'll find the links for that to where you get a discount code right there. We also want to thank Karen Kennedy, Ricky Pope of Christian Nerds Unite, Darren Wilhite of the Wilhite and Wall Show to help me out with my introduction. Don't forget to email us podcast at neverlandpodcast.com. Find us on Twitter, NeverlandPcast, also on X. We're on Facebook. We have both a group and a fan page, and I recommend the group because it's a lot more interactive. You can join the official Neverlanders by going to neverlandpodcast.com. Become a Lost Boy or a Pixie. Why a Pixie? Because girls are too clever. They don't get lost. Don't forget, also, we do have a Patreon page. You'll find that in the show notes. Also, Red Circle does have an exclusive club. That's where you'll get to find videos of this particular conversation on Patreon, or you can get an ad-free version of this episode, other than the ads that I just read for you directly now. Now, though, as we say at the end of every episode, get lost in an adventure! And we'll see you next time.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. And now, during our Black Friday sale, save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Plus free home delivery when you add a base. And Cyber Monday. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.